To East Hampton Town Board, we are live.
Thank you, LTV. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the East Hampton Town Board work session of Tuesday, December 16th, 2025. Carol, if you could please read the roll call.
Councilmember Flight.
Present.
Councilmember Lees.
Present.
Councilmember Rogers.
Present.
Councilmember Calder Piedmont.
Present.
Supervisor Brooke Gonzalez.
Present. If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So this morning we opened with public comment and we ask you to please kindly keep your comments to 3 minutes. And then today we have 7 topics. It's the last work session of the year and we're trying to get it all in. We'll have bids with Jeannie Carrozza. Captain Greg Martin will give us a dispatch update. Melissa McCarron will review a CPF water quality improvement plan, proposed changes. We'll have a presentation from the Special Events Committee with a 2025 recap and then recommendations for some code changes for 2026 with our town attorney, Jake Turner. And then we are going to continue the conversation we started on December 2nd on the Agricultural Committee's recommendation. And lastly, Charlie Collins will come in, and we had a hearing back in November, and there's been some subsequent conversations with homeowners, and this is for the 213 3 Mile Harbor, East Hampton, Martinez, UR map modification. That'll be followed by liaison reports, and then we have a few resolutions. So we will start with public portion, and Rona, I believe you're the first one signed up. Welcome, Rona. Yeah, not as crowded as the last time you were here. I said not as crowded as the last time you were here.
Definitely, that was a shocker. For short people here. It's Rona Klopman from Amagansett, and I'm here to talk about what is last on your list for today, which is the site plan review process for agricultural properties. I was here before, of course, 2 weeks ago, and I discussed that there were 366 acres. Well, I was absolutely wrong because I called Scott Wilson, who is your director of land management here, and he informed me that there were over 1,400 acres of agricultural land in the town. He sent me a sheet, which I printed out, pages of agricultural land, and of course there were some land areas that were missing. So I wrote to Scott. I sent him an email like, where is this property? Where is this property? It turns out they're not even on this list because they were set up, for instance, Amber Waves was set up as open space, and it's not, it's farmland. So he said they are going to do a review in March, in the spring, to review all of the land masses. So my question is, how can you change and basically deregulate farmland when you're not even sure, of the properties that you have? I mean, there are just so many of them. And there were a lot of changes that they want done, whatever was discussed by the planning department. I think one of them was a fee change. I don't know how you can do that without writing a whole comp plan section of all of these agricultural properties without knowing exactly, what should be done. You don't have any data to prove it, and there's no data to prove that you need a change to begin with. So I would like to see the planning department take this list and get a new updated list by Scott Wilson with adding appropriate easements and restrictions and development rights purchased by the town for each of these properties before you can make any decision. In the absence of clear understanding of the rights and restrictions and the number of agricultural lands you actually have, I don't know how you can do a review process. And basically, I'd like to see that done before you make any recommendations for changes to anything, including the fees, because they want something like a shed for 600 square feet. That's 30 by 20. That's a big building, and it's going to affect residential areas that are all around these properties. So I thank you for listening, and I'll stay tuned and watch what happens.
Thank you, Rona. Would anyone else like to address the board? All right, Jason, we can go to, oh, Gloria, did you want to speak? Yes. Sure. Welcome, Gloria.
Good morning. Gloria Frazee from East Hampton. Yes. And December last year, or the year before, someone reminded me I brought my Christmas wreath and popped that down in front. And I was in such a rush this morning that I totally forgot to bring it. If I had brought it, you would see that it's not all just one type of green, but it's this really cool mix of all these different greens. And it just looks so cool because it's got texture and everything. Which leads me into this morning's talk about Mythbusters and sustainable and affordable native landscaping. So myth number one, it always costs more. Actually, if you look out here at Change Hampton, how cool is that? It's really stunning. It is built as a demonstration showcase for what is possible on a fairly large piece of property with a fair amount of money. And, you know, I'm sure you walk in every morning and just say, oh, that's gorgeous. That's really lovely. Wow. The number of people who've stopped and taken pictures, fabulous, all the time. It looks a little odd right now because there are all these pokey things up. It's like not neat and pretty. What's really cool about it is that it's actually feeding the birds right now and giving space, giving habitat to a lot of insects who are overwintering in those stems. That's why it stays just a little messy over the winter. Okay, back to my first thought. Okay, it does cost, this cost a bunch of money, but if you look around East Hampton, there are a lot of community gardens, much smaller gardens, manageable, without professional designers, without professional landscapers, built by high school students, volunteers, local organizations in really small spaces. So just because it's a small, manageable garden in a little space doesn't mean that it's any less valuable for habitat, for feeding birds, for the joy of bringing people together and digging in the dirt and doing something like this. By Matthews Garden at the Historical Farm Museum, we're also working on a small demonstration garden with Rewild that is not deer fenced, but uses all native plants to sort of see, okay, what works here? What's not working here? How does it look? Are people enjoying this? So there are lots of different ways to do this. When you're also talking about pricing, it's not just that initial install. You're not going to get that first off, like, okay, one and done thing, but it is a process. Life is a process. Nature is a process. Lawn reduction and adapted plants cost 30 to 50% less water. 20 to 60% lower maintenance costs over time. And I think that's my time. There's a whole bunch more. I'll send you all a letter about other myths around sustainable landscaping and how important it is to our community, to our land, to our soils and our seas. Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Would anyone else like to address the board? All right, Jason, let's go to the phones, please.
Okay, unmuting the first caller. All right, caller ending 4994. You are on the air. Can you hear me? Hello, caller ending 4994. You are on the air. Can you hear me? Okay, moving on to the next caller. I'll circle back to them. Hello, caller ending 5464. I hear you. Are you on? Can you hear me? Hello, caller ending 5464. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I'm just listening. I'm not.
Oh, Oh, you're just listening. Okay.
Thank
We
you.
we have a YouTube. I just want to
you.
let you know we have a YouTube stream, and we also have a stream going live on our channel as well. So in case you want to listen in, that also is very effective for anyone else. So I'm going to move on to the next caller,
Wonderful.
and going to go to 9337. You are on the air. Hello.
I'm just listening as well.
Okay. And moving on to next caller. 7276, you are on the air. Can you hear me? And we are.
Hi, I'm also listening. I wanted to really discuss the water quality improvement plan, and I don't think we're there yet.
You have presenting with you? So this would be the time for them to speak if they wanted to during public comment.
Yeah, exactly. Let me just go back and unmute that caller one more time, and then I'll just start on the top of the chain again.
Thank you.
Hello,
Okay,
caller
well,
ending.
I'll
There
take
you
a
go.
pass for the moment. Thank you.
Pardon me, what was that?
I'll take a pass for the moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Supervisor, do we have plans to circle back to them after the water quality talk or no?
No, this is the time for public comment.
Exactly. This is the time for public comment, so I'm moving on to the next caller right now. Hello, caller ending 3613. You are on the air. Can you hear me?
Oh, that's me. Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Hi. Or do we wish to participate
good.
today?
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I would just like to add a very quick thank you.
Please,
to
excuse
the
me.
town.
Please, you need to first state your name and where you're from, so that way they have it on record. Thank
I'm
you very
so
much.
sorry. This is my first time. Okay, my name is Robin Katz, Katz. I live in Springs in Lionhead Beach Association. I am on the board there, and I am calling in reference to the same as the gentleman who you were just speaking with. It's the third item on the agenda by Melissa. I'm looking for it, Melissa McCann, I think. And it is with regards to Melissa McCarran. It's with regards to the CPF Water Quality Improvement Plan for the 2026 update. And I'm specifically calling to voice my support and my thanks to the town for taking up the inclusion of 2 natural ponds on in our neighborhood for studying, for remediation, so on and so forth. And I'm grateful to the town for listening to us as we requested additional support in this regard. And I would just like to say that that I am very much in support of this and would be grateful to have us included in your program.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your listening.
Okay, moving on to next caller. Hello, caller ending 9497. You're on the air.
Yes, hi. My name's Robert. I'm from the Springs Lionhead Beach Association as well, and I just agree with what Robin had said and just wanted to state my opinion on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay, because there's some apparent confusion initially, is it okay if I go back to the top of that list and make sure? Yeah, okay, I just want to make absolutely sure that everyone's...
Sounds like they gave the phone number out rather than letting
Yeah.
folks know that.
That sounds exactly like
Listen
what
in
happened.
the future.
Okay, top of the list, 4994, we are here again. Can you hear me?
Yes, this is Aaron Santel, also from Lionhead Beach, and just want to echo those comments. And we'll be using the other method of tuning in next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Moving on to next caller. Caller ending 5464, you're on the air. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes, thank you. I also am calling from Lionhead Beach. My name is Courtney. I live on the pond, and any help that you could give us would be so helpful. It's the pond, the odor that comes off, it's not healthy. There's a thick green sludge. This summer we were lucky to have 7 swans born. You just look out there and your heart breaks for all of the wildlife. So please, please, please help us with this problem. We're good people and we need help, so thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Okay, I'm muting next caller. 9337, you're on the air. Hello, 9337. Okay, moving on to next. And now I've officially circled back to 7276. You're on the air.
Thank you. Again, this is Craig Sands from Lion's Head. We appreciate, and I'm echoing the same thing that everyone else from Lionhead had mentioned. We appreciate you, the attention that you're giving us, and we really do need that help. So I'm just echoing the same sentiment. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Okay, that is officially every single person that was on there. We had 6 callers, and I have unmuted all of them and double-checked everything.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jason. Would anyone else like to address the board at this time? All right, so now we're going to move up to topics. And first up is bids with Jeannie Carrozza. Welcome, Jeannie.
Good morning. I have quite a few items to end up the year with. First is for the annual sidewalk contract. Stasi Industries is the apparent low bidder for that contract. Next is for the demolition at 20 Springs Fireplace Road. Ken Roussel is the apparent low bidder in the amount of $45,000 wastewater management system. CMJ Greywater agreed to extend that contract. We're rejecting the bid for the printing of the town clerk permits. We're going to rebid that at a later date. And we also did 2 RFPs. The first was for the professional and related services for seasonal air traffic control for the air traffic control tower at the airport. Robinson Aviation is the recommended company. Per Jim Brundage, his quote was, current provider for this service, and they provide qualified air traffic controllers and responsive to all of our needs. So we're continuing that contract with them. And lastly, an RFP was done for the hazardous household waste collection days, or the stop days, which we have at our recycling centers. Radiac is the chosen vendor for that. We also asked to have 2 more dates added to those that we have currently, and they agreed to those dates. And they're also a participant in the Paint Care program, and that was also from our last provider. And what they do is recycle the paint brought in, and there's no charge for that. And it's a great program. The costs are kept down, and it works well.
Good. Tom, I think, do we add 2 additional dates?
Yeah, I've got the dates, Saturday, March 14th in Montauk, Saturday, June 13th, East Hampton, September 12th in East Hampton, and November 7th in Montauk.
So we doubled the number of dates.
Yes.
We had a conversation here. We had originally, we're going to go to 3, but then we reached out to Craig Fick, and he thought 4 would be appropriate. Nice tie, Councilmember Lees. How did I miss that?
Back in the closet for this one.
All right, any questions for Jeannie? Thanks, Jeannie.
You're welcome.
All right, so next up, we have Captain Greg Martin here to give us an update on dispatch. Welcome,
morning.
Captain Martin.
Hello, how are we doing? All right, so effective 26, we will be taking over or be designated as the PSAP for the East Hampton Township, which is Public Safety Answering Point. That designation is through the county. Will be the primary designation. What that means is we'll be taking on all 911 calls direct through our dispatch services in Wayne-Scott. That exact date is requested by the county, who oversees that, as January 5th. So that's what we're looking at. That transition will be around noon, but that day either way. So what that means more or less is all 911 calls coming in our jurisdiction will come to our dispatch services, and then we will make a determination once we receive those calls, whether or not that gets transferred back to the village dispatch services and or is dispatched directly by us. What differentiates that right now will be whether it's fire or EMS related and or if it's a police matter. To piggyback on that, effective February 1st of 26, we will be taking over both Springs and Sag Harbor. When I say we, I mean East Hampton Township Dispatch Services, Springs and Sag Harbor fire and EMS dispatching. So any call that comes in, regardless of how, that's associated to a Springs and or Sag Harbor EMS or fire-related service or need will be dispatched by the East Hampton Township dispatchers. So with that said, we are currently undertaking several training steps, several renovation steps, and multiple procedures to prepare for this. I will start with construction of a renovation at our dispatch headquarters of our dispatch room. We are currently in a separate room, fully functional and having no issues. It's operating actually rather efficiently working rather well. We are looking at a completed renovation date of around the end of January. The transition is a non-issue. We have 2 seats that have been added due to this added responsibility with the PSAP designation. And we have, with those added seats, the ability to transfer personnel at a pace that will not cause us issue. So regardless of when exactly that renovation's done, we have no transferring over issues. The personnel that we have for dispatch services is 3 primary for every shift of PSD 1s, which is public safety dispatcher 1s, which would be the people that you hear on the end of the line. We have 2 that are PSD 2s, which are the first line supervisors, if you will, overseeing all of them, and then 1 chief dispatcher who oversees the whole program. So additional training that's necessary with that, and to get you up to speed on that, first is EMD certification. That's emergency medical dispatching. All of our dispatchers are trained in that. And what that means is when we get an incoming 911 call where there's some form of medical emergency, there's a step-by-step guide that needs to more or less be relayed to these people on how to provide aid to themselves or others, depending upon what the situation is. So EMD is a certification that all dispatchers receive, and all of ours have that and have had it forever. We just were never tasked with this responsibility. With that, there is a program, computer program called ProQA. It's a software that interfaces more or less with our current CAD, which is a computer program for our dispatching services, where it bullet points the guidelines for that emergency medical dispatching. That ProQA program is currently working with our police department dispatching program to make sure the interface is smooth and seamless, and we are expecting no issues with that. As with all technology, though, there could always be an issue regardless of how seamless that is. The way in which we deal with that and how it's always been is something called EMD cards or cards. So these cards are literally physical cards that the dispatcher will refer to and find whatever issue that it is that they need to address, go to that portion of the card and read it verbatim as necessary for that call. So that is our fallback, but we are anticipating that interface of that ProQA program occurring in January. Again, with the expected February 1st timeframe that we have to take on the Springs and Sag Harbor districts. Training for that ProQA program is being conducted now. All of our dispatchers are currently in the process of or have already completed a mandatory ProQA training program. In addition to that mandatory training, we have been sending our dispatchers to Suffolk County Dispatch Services in Yaphank, FRES. FRES is Fire Rescue Emergency Services through the county, and they conduct this same operation with their dispatchers and more of a sit-in to a little additional training, if you will. That has been going very well. We have Dr. Winslow from the Suffolk County assigned as our medical director. You have to have a medical director on board who signs off on policies and procedures and such. That is already been confirmed, and that is who is going to be assigned as our medical director once we are the designated PSAP. Additional trainings, there's quality assurance trainings and such, which is more geared towards our supervisors. So our first line dispatch supervisors will have additional certifications in quality assurance and review procedures. So in the grand scheme, they'll be tasked with reviewing random calls and a certain number of calls per year to confirm compliance and such. Those specific trainings called EMDQ and AQUA, our certifications will get through them. That is already completed with majority of those supervisors. I touched on the InfoShare program. The InfoShare program is more or less our police records management system and our CAD system. That interface is planning on being done with that ProQA program again in January. So that should be a rather seamless transition. The actual districts, fire districts of Sag Harbor and Springs, we have received all of their protocols and their preferred responses and such. We have implemented all of them. They are happy with that. We've had continuous contact with all of them, the chiefs and with both FD and EMS sides of things. And we have a meeting that we're planning mid-early January to just finalize and confirm all those things. That's more or less sums up where we're at currently. If anybody has any questions, please ask. But we are on track. We're not anticipating any severe issues of any kind. And again, the transition back into our primary room once the renovation is done is a non-issue because we have multiple seats and the ability with our current room operating seamlessly to have no issue with that. We can dispatch fully functional dispatching where we currently are in our temporary room.
Great. And obviously, this is all being overseen by senior staff, Steve Blanchard, who is
There's a large
public safety
amount of personnel that go into overseeing all these things. We have contacts with the county, both FRES, which I mentioned earlier, the communications directors with the Suffolk County PD, who oversee the whole 911 program for Suffolk County and more or less dictate how things are conducted and who's designated as a primary PSAP, who's designated as a secondary PSAP. The whole system they oversee. So in terms of internally, yes, we have multiple personnel from.
And Eddie Schnell as well.
Eddie Schnell, Stephen Blanchard, who was our chief public safety dispatcher, our senior staff with the police department who assists in all these things and make sure this stuff goes as smooth as humanly possible. And the chief of police. So that's more or less where we're at right now. Obviously, we have holidays upcoming, people off, but we have covered all of the priority issues. Right now, we're just looking forward to that date so we can move on and move past this. And
so, Captain, so typically speaking, we have the 3 public safety dispatchers. So on a regular shift, there'll be the 3 there plus 1 supervisor. Is that the plan?
Correct. That's in the grand scheme, that's the plan. So we have 5 squads right now. Those 5 squads will have 3 PSD1s assigned to each one. With that, we have 2 first line supervisors who rotate on a different schedule, but it overlaps with multiple different squads throughout their shifts. And then Stephen Blanchard, the chief I just mentioned, is our primary oversight of everything that works on Monday to Friday.
So just the one question I'd have is just, obviously like everything else, we're super seasonal, come the summer months, we're going to see that massive surge. Are there plans in place that the staffing rotation will change then? Will the supervisors have more of a hands-on role at that point in time and be less supervisory? How will that operate?
Well, a few different things. First, we are anticipating additional hires that are budgeted for next year. In addition to that, we have in years past and fully anticipate doing the same, adding supplemental dispatchers just to lessen the burden of the call volume during those expected seasonal timeframes. But yes, right now it's going to be 3 assigned to each squad, right, with the supervision of the other 3.
Anyone else have questions?
Yes, I do. I just, this is all very technical and it's a lot of letters and acronyms. I just want to ask you a question, and I want to thank you, Captain Martin, and your team for all the work that you're doing going into this transition. For someone who calls the 911, just regular citizen who calls the 911, they're not going to notice any difference to what happens right now, correct?
Correct. So to break that down a little more, you get a 911 call, it's going to come into us. There is contractual obligations with fire districts, depending upon what the nature of this emergency is for. If it's a police matter in our township, we are going to answer it and send police. That's what our dispatchers will do. Obviously, they're the East Hampton Town Police that'll be responding. We'll be sending them. Come February 1st, if it's a medical or fire emergency in Sag Harbor and or Springs, we will obviously be sending police, but also dispatching fire and ambulance services depending upon what's needed to those hamlets. Anything outside those hamlets, Montauk, Amagansett, and East Hampton Village, we will transfer as, in essence, what's done now, but backwards to the village because of contractual obligations for those districts to the village.
And that includes mutual aid responses?
Correct. Yep.
From the user end, no change.
No, there should be 0 change noticed.
Thanks.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Captain
Yeah, no
Martin.
problem.
We appreciate you coming in today, giving us an update.
Absolutely. Any questions?
We will reach out. Thank you. Okay, next up is a presentation from Melissa McCarron, which there are folks still on the line that are listening in, Melissa. So do you want to do it from there, or is Megan's going to help you? Great. Welcome, Megan.
Good morning, Town Board.
Melissa.
Melissa McCarron, I'm a Principal Environmental Analyst in the Natural Resources Department here at the town. And I'm here to give an overview of some of the proposed changes that is coming through the Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee as suggested modifications to our Water Quality Improvement Plan, which would be incorporated in 2026. The mission of the Community Preservation Fund in the past, since 1999, was to preserve community character through land acquisition and preservation. In 2016, a referendum was passed which both extended the CPF tax through 2050, as well as included up to 20% of the CPF fund to be used for water quality improvement. So the 2016 referendum allowed protection and improvement of water quality by funding water quality improvement projects. The town adopted a water quality improvement plan as a guidance document in 2016, which lays the groundwork for identifying priority areas, projects, and programs to be implemented by the town. We did an update in 2020, and now we're doing an update for 2026, which be included in the greater CPF project plan that would be put forward by Land Acquisition and Management through Scott Wilson. And this plan sets forth the priorities that outlines ways the town can reduce the inputs of pollutants into our water bodies, remediate existing pollution in our soil and groundwater, and also restore water quality in impacted areas, as well as continue to protect our pristine water quality in East Hampton. Next. So the water quality improvement plan, the original definition had 4 water quality project types that were eligible for funding. So the first one was water quality or wastewater treatment improvement projects. So this includes sanitary system upgrades to reduce impacts on water bodies. So town properties that were in need of wastewater treatment improvement. We've to date really been focusing on upgrading our comfort stations, and I did an update presentation last week if people want to refer back to some of our accomplishments to date through the program. And then we also included our septic incentive program through providing rebates to property owners. Just a little bit of an update. We've had a few more since last week. So we have 931 upgrades total through the project, which kicked off in 2017, and 170 upgrades this year to date. Next project type was non-point source abatement and control. So this is diffuse sources of pollution from overland runoff, stormwater runoff, and groundwater inputs. So we've been focusing really on stormwater control, reducing the discharge of untreated stormwater to our water bodies. Agricultural pollution abatement would also be included in this, but we've done some rain gardens, bioswales, and then installed some additional catch basins to control stormwater runoff. Aquatic habitat restoration is also another project type that's allowable to improve the ecological functioning of aquatic habitat in specific surface waters of ecological significance. So we've really been focusing on protection and restoration of eelgrass, seaweed, meadow grow out areas, as well as constructed wetlands. And then the last type was pollution prevention. This is kind of a smaller component of our program. It's really focusing on improving and maintaining a facility that reduces or eliminates discharge of toxic or hazardous substances, which in that definition includes nutrients, which is mostly our focus out here. But we've included some education components to that under that definition. So for 2026, the definition of the water quality improvement project has shifted a little bit. So based on the 2024 CPF law modification, the definition became a little bit more open-ended. So it's projects designed to improve the quality of drinking and surface waters. So that flexibility kind of allows us to incorporate some additional projects that I'll go into a little later. Some of the other changes included in that 2024 law modification were the allowance of unused funds to roll over from year to year, which allows us to, potentially fund some larger scale projects in the future. And then also the establishment of the Office of Regional Community Preservation Fund Council and the intermunicipal agreement for the Peconic Bay Region Advisory Committee. So that's really just regional oversight of CPF. So our plan will still follow the original outline of these 4 project types, but allow us to incorporate a little bit more flexibility in how we utilize the funding under that. Next slide. Right up to, I guess I have it staged. So in the plan, it identifies priority areas where remedial activities should be completed first. So these are really focusing on areas where antiquated septic systems or development have the potential to have the largest impact on water quality. So the existing priorities in the plan include areas without public water where residents rely on private wells for drinking water, sites located in the Harbor Protection Overlay District, areas where groundwater reaches surface water quickly, shallow depths to groundwater, sites threatened by flood or storm surge, sites where soil permeability may impact percolation. So we're more likely to see ponding and stormwater runoff and things like that from those areas. High density neighborhoods, so homes built on small lot sizes. These areas have the higher number of sources in a small location, and also these pollutants will eventually either percolate to groundwater with precipitation or have direct runoff into our water bodies. And then also properties nearby water bodies with known impacts, or where we already have some efforts underway, we kind of want to couple those efforts and have the bigger impact and improvements. So a couple new additions that we're proposing for 2026. The first one's more of a clarification of the areas where groundwater reaches surface water quickly. We want to add the definition of 0 to 2 year groundwater travel time. which is what our water protection district is really based off of. So areas with 0 to 2-year groundwater travel time, we're going to see the impacts as well as the efforts that we're making in those areas the most quickly. We're going to see those impacts in the shortest period of time. So we want to focus on those areas and make those improvements first. There's also less time for natural treatment in that zone as well. And then the second addition would be projects that impact a water body that has public access. We really want to support areas that provide the most benefit to our residents and visitors in East Hampton. Next slide. So a lot of those priority areas are our focus, as well as protecting our priority water bodies. So the existing priority water bodies in the plan are listed here. These are going to be renamed primary priority water bodies. So this includes all of our major surface waters, lakes, harbors, and ponds. And these locations have the highest level of beneficial uses for residents and visitors to enjoy. So these include primary and secondary contact recreation, which are classification guides for regulations to protect public health. So primary would be high immersion areas where we have strict water quality standards, such as for swimming, primary contact to skin or potential ingestion of the water. And then secondary would be fishing and boating and shellfishing and things like that, where it's more incidental contact. These areas also, many of them support shellfishing and aquaculture, as well as provide wildlife habitat. So to date, these locations have been the focus of our major projects funded through CPF Water Quality. Maps of all these locations is included in the plan, and these will be updated through this iteration. Next slide. So for 2026, and what a lot of the callers were calling in about this morning is we're proposing adding secondary priority water bodies. So these are some smaller, potentially lesser known areas that may support secondary contact recreation like boating and kayaking, or may have really just ecological benefits as wildlife habitat areas. These weren't typically the focus of water quality improvement projects in the past, but adding these secondary priority areas allows us to potentially fund a project in one of these locations. So they would still rank a little bit lower than the primary water bodies, but they would be fundable. So the secondary priority areas include Little Northwest Creek, Scoys Pond, Alewife Pond, Chatfield's Hole, Swan Pond, and Pond Lane Pond, which is in the Lionhead community, Fresh Pond in Amagansett, Tuttle Pond in Montauk, Stepping Stones, Big and Little Reed Ponds, and Oyster Pond all in Montauk. So all of our maps would be updated to include the primary water bodies as well as these secondary. I put kind of an example of one of our maps. So the dark blue outline is Accabonock Harbor watershed, and then the light blue is Fresh Pond. So that's kind of an example of how they would all be included. Next slide. So some of the other changes that the Water Quality Committee is proposing for 2026, with the more vague definition of water quality improvement project, we're proposing allowing for additional focus on monitoring as well as maintenance of water quality in East Hampton. So originally, standalone monitoring was not an eligible use of the water quality funding, but there's many reasons why monitoring would be beneficial to our program, including having some baseline monitoring. So we have defined starting points. If we know where we are, we have a better idea of where we need to go. Being able to better define locations where remedial work is needed for targeted efforts. It would allow us to characterize high nutrient loading to set those target areas and kind of have the biggest bang for our buck. Allows projects to be properly designed and installed. Allows us to assess our completed projects and the efficiency and how well they're working. Allows us to track water quality improvements over time where projects have been implemented. and then gives us an assessment of overall water quality trends in East Hampton. So we know that, all of these efforts combined are making an impact moving forward. So we would like to incorporate more monitoring into our projects, as well as potentially go out to RFP to hire a team to help us design a monitoring plan and help us meet our goals here. And then additionally, we would like to provide funding for ongoing maintenance of town projects. So currently in our bids, we've been including 5-year monitoring or maintenance plans within each bid for our projects to ensure that they're successful. But some of these projects, in order to continue seeing the benefits and protecting our investment, we might want to include additional maintenance moving forward where warranted. Next slide. And then some additional changes. This I don't foresee being very common, but we're proposing adding language for public water extension as an authorized use of the CPF water quality funding, only where contamination is identified, and the purpose of the expansion would be to protect public health through drinking water protection. So this was technically allowed through as a CPF expenditure through a New York State bill that was passed in 2018, but it was never incorporated into our plan. So this would be for the construction of public water mains and connections, and we're proposing it being included as a definition of water quality improvement project. So a project of this nature, as always, would have to be vetted through our Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee and through the town board. I don't foresee it being a common occurrence, but this would make it an allowable expense. We're also proposing adding some language to the non-point source pollution abatement section to specifically address stormwater runoff concerns with the town highway department, where they have some known areas of concern. So this wouldn't be to address flooding. It would be specifically for stormwater abatement that would directly impact a priority water body. So this could include additional drainage infrastructure, catch basins or dry wells, inlet filters, end of pipe treatment to kind of polish stormwater before it exits and potentially enters a water body, or green infrastructure to improve existing runoff in priority areas. And then we're also proposing removing one section concerning inspection and maintenance of septic systems. So the town does not have a town sanitarian, so it doesn't quite make sense at this time to have this section included in our plan. We don't have someone qualified to determine if a system has failed, so we can't really go around requiring upgrades. So Suffolk County Health Department does do inspections of all of the new installations to make sure that they're designed or installed the way they were designed. And the town does not have jurisdiction over doing that. We do site inspections through our septic incentive program, but that's more of verification that the systems were installed and completed before we issue any rebate funding. So that's really our only jurisdiction over that. Next slide. And then lastly, we have some water body specific recommendations that's being proposed to be incorporated in the plan. So this includes implementing recommendations from some of our completed engineering reports and studies and site investigations. So these would be incorporated into the watersheds for Georgica Pond based on our Cove Hollow pipe engineering report, Hog Creek, 3 Mile Harbor, Accabonac Harbor, and Lake Montauk based on some site characterization work that was completed with partnering with Cornell Cooperative Extension. We want to add in there upgrading municipally owned public use facilities to advanced treatment. So we have the town facilities included, but there's also some New York State and Suffolk County owned properties that have sanitary systems in the town. So those are also a priority for upgrade. They do impact our water bodies.
Can I ask you a question about that? Because the memo too that you did on December 8th, which is also on the website, is very thorough. I appreciate that. So you had pointed out Cedar Point Park. So would that be, and that's a county park, would that be using town water quality funds to upgrade a county facility?
Yeah, we actually did one upgrade that was on New York State Parkland, which is in Montauk for the Lions Field. So it would be similar to that kind of project. So we would be partnering with them. We would have to do some outreach and coordination with them. I'm not sure if it would be eligible potentially for maybe any county funding, but since it does impact our water, we want to make sure that they get upgraded.
Only difference there is that was a town facility.
Town
These are
facility
county
on, yeah.
facilities. I believe at the county park, there's 3 septic facilities there.
Yeah.
In the ranger house, the main septic, and then also the guardhouse.
Yeah. So it could be a little bit more complicated than some of the ones we've done in the past, but we would do some outreach and coordination with those entities. We also would like to include, this is more of like a future goal project, but doing some feasibility studies for considering a pilot community wastewater treatment system in high-density residential areas. So this would really be focusing on the Accabonac Harbor and 3 Mile Harbor watersheds with the high-density residences and springs. This would be a very complicated project, so we would want to do some investigation up front to see if it's feasible, and then kind of work along, a timeline there. We'd like to include some more targeted permeable reactive barrier projects based on some site characterization work that's already been completed that show where there's high nitrogen inputs in some of these areas. So these would focus on Hog Creek, Accabonac Harbor, 3 Mile Harbor, particularly Hands Creek, Sunset Cove, and Tanbark Creek study areas in 3 Mile Harbor, as well as some areas in Georgica Pond. Couple more here. I know this is a lot. We'd like to include some investigation to determine appropriate locations within watersheds for additional stormwater treatment structures. So particularly in some of the secondary priority water bodies, including Chatfield Toll and Swan Pond, which we've had reports of some direct runoff that should be controlled better. And there's also some recommendations from engineering reports on specific locations where this would be good to focus on. Additionally, locate and eliminate or ensure proper treatment of any direct discharges if they still exist. That would be focusing on Hog Creek and Fort Pond. And then lastly, investigate the feasibility of environmental dredge projects to improve water quality. This would be in Hog Creek and Napeague Harbor. And these would really have to qualify as an environmental dredge project, not navigation. So there's specific guidelines under Suffolk County DPW to qualify for an environmental dredge project. So
you answered my question before I asked it. Thank you.
Yep. So as always, specific projects will continue to be vetted through the Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee. Recommendations to move forward with any specific project would come from the committee to the town board and be approved via resolution by the board. Many of these projects would require, if it's a town project, us to go out to RFP to hire an engineer or go out to bid to install any of these projects. So it would be a public process. And I just wanted to reiterate that this is an evolving process, and that's why we're here making some of these changes as we move forward. This is the next step in planning for the next phase of water quality improvement for East Hampton.
Melissa, we put your PowerPoint up, we put your December 8th memo up, and we also put the proposed changes to the water quality improvement plan. Mm-hmm. I would imagine this requires a public hearing?
Yes. So this would be coupled with the CPF project plan. It would be underneath that, and that whole process will go through a public hearing with the update.
What are we looking at timing-wise?
I know Scott is planning on doing it in 2026. I don't know exactly his timing.
Okay, so for instance, for the folks from Alliance Head that were listening in, because I recall them putting forward a project when we went out for RFA a year or two ago, and unfortunately we couldn't entertain it because it wouldn't be available for this first round.
Well, I mean, if the board would support, we could go through public hearing as standalone for just the water quality portion.
I think
if you think that would be better.
I think we should, because there's a lot to wrap your head around just for this.
Yeah.
And I don't see any reason.
And then it can be incorporated later when Scott does his.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
Melissa, I just have a question. I mean, one of the issues I know a lot of residents reach out to is, where they're close to the water table, not only do they have septic issues, but they have drinking water issues too from their well. So I know the Senate bill allows for the provision of public water based on some contaminants. What contaminants are those, and how would residents go about finding out whether or not they might possibly have eligibility in a neighborhood for public water provision through this program?
I think nitrogen infiltration into drinking water wells would qualify for that, but I think it would have to be known areas probably impacting a whole community in order to justify extending public water. And I think we would want to be working with Suffolk County Water Authority on that and come up with a plan for that extension and how that would all come together.
Yeah, I mean, if there is means, there's some areas that I know have, also for firefighting risk, if there's the ability to partner with Suffolk County Water, get drinkable water to these areas and kind of increase our hydrant positioning, be a great possible project and use of this fund. I'd say the other thing about this I think I'm most excited about is the move to water quality testing. I think that's huge. The data we get from how these projects works just justifies the continued piece. So I'm delighted to see that.
One other note on the public water. So if there is a main accessible to private property currently, if they are upgrading their sanitary system, hooking up to public water would be an eligible expense if required to upgrade their sanitary under our septic incentive program. So that would be something they could submit for reimbursement currently. Yeah.
But there's defined reasons for that.
Yes, it would have to be required by, required by Suffolk County Health Department.
It's not just because you want to.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So for myself, thank you very much. 8 years in, very similar to the conversation I had last week here, then to 8 years of funding right now, 8 years of changes, 8 years of applicants coming here, and 8 years of requests to do more, 8 years of individuals trying to figure out the system or game the system even then too. And I think yourself and your staff have done a very good job, specifically with the Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee, to advocate for changes when appropriate and needed, and also allow the town board then to advocate to the state for changes, as you saw in the General Obligation Law of 2014, which allows us then to work towards this presentation today in 2025, preparing for 2026 funding, which is open now. And I'll let you go into that and take that off of my plate for my liaison report. There's 3 things there that I thought stood out then too. Long-term monitoring, Tom just mentioned this also. For the first time in 30 years, what is the lowest the lowest dead oxygen in the Long Island Sound is happening right now. Those are reports that are coming out. That is a regional thing. That's a Long Island Sound. We have the Peconic Estuary, and we just have our own beautiful water bodies here. So this is part of the way that we can take care of ourselves, by understanding that we're part of a larger area of water bodies that are all connected then too. The only way we can find that out and do that is through monitoring. So I completely agree with that and pressing on that. The second one is long-term maintenance. I've sat in many meetings with you, and so the town board members, long-term maintenance is a huge thing. Great. It looks great. Works great for 3 years, but how are you going to maintain it over time and allow that to happen with the municipal projects, I think is appropriate. And also collaboration and coordination with other town entities is important also then too. If we look at runoff on there then too, and there's a runoff project, but hence that runoff is affecting a mile up the road, how can we coordinate with highway department and other departments to try to put catch basins in the appropriate locations, or what is already there as we target further down that runoff area in a watershed? I think it's appropriate. So putting those all out there, I think you were taking off a lot of boxes for me to say, yes, I would like to move forward on this. You were seeing the secondary water bodies also right now. That's very appropriate. Okay, those are some of the ones that target smaller groups of property owners. You're seeing not just on Lion's Head, you've seen in Chesapeake Hole and other areas and too, which that small community will have greater buy-in to the greater plan that this is for. So I think that is appropriate, because that's something we're seeing a lot more of on these applications. And now 8 years in, we can finally look at that. So I agree with you, Supervisor, about pulling that out, but also wouldn't mind moving this forward in early calendar year 26 too.
Great.
Yeah, I support moving this forward. I think the changes that you're making are reflecting the data that you collected over the years, as David has said, and what the impacts of the water quality projects that have been done here in town. And I think it's a natural evolution to also recognize the other, you have the primary sources, but primary doesn't mean only. So to be able to look at secondary sources, to me, is also very important, and the way that you're prioritizing them, I think, is important as well. I know callers called in, and the state of some of our ponds are, I mean, clearly you could see there's impacts happening there. So to be able to address them, I think it's an evolution of the project and of the purpose of the water quality CPF allowances. So thank you.
Couldn't agree more.
I don't have any questions or anything to add, but I'm supportive of all your suggestions.
Yeah, Melissa, they were really thoughtful and comprehensive. And I think we, work with the town attorney's office to get this notice for public hearing for 26.
Okay.
Can I ask a favor? Can you please take this off my liaison report or others? Can you please let everyone know about the RFA one that has just opened this week and explain it to the best you can, who to contact and what is offered in that?
Yes, so just opened yesterday is the first round of the 2026 Request for Applications Water Quality Improvement Grant Program that we offer 1 to 2 times a year, depending on the funding available. For the first round of 2026, we have earmarked $1 million as the total potential awards for water quality improvement projects. Applications would be due February 16th, so that's when the application window closes. Water Quality Committee will then review all the applications that we receive and make direct comparisons and prioritize projects and make recommendations to the town board for potential grant awards, which would likely come through April, May of 2026.
Where can you find that information? Who do you contact?
So on the town's website, under Natural Resources, Water Quality Improvement, you can find all the information about the grant, and you can reach out to the Natural Resources Department directly, 631-324-0496, and we have a dedicated email for grant applications, which is cpfgrant@ehamptonny.gov.
And we just put out a press release on it today too.
Yeah.
My liaison report will be short.
Thank you for that more than anything.
Thank you very much.
Melissa. Thank you, Megan. Okay, next up, Michael, we already had public comment in the beginning of the meeting. When you came in, I offered it again. We just said we've got people on the line that if we do it, make the exception. Okay.
But I would say just reach out to us with your comments.
Yeah, if you would have sent us an email.
Email us with your comments.
Yeah.
I appreciate your support.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Okay, Chelsea and Anne Marie, you're up, and you're color coordinated.
Plan that.
Welcome.
Good morning, Town Board. I'm Anne Marie Lamprecht, Legislative Secretary.
Chelsea Winslow, Legislative Secretary. Let me just get this.
Chelsea's going to do the first half of the presentation, and I'll do the second half. This way, we're not bouncing back and forth.
Just while you're getting set up, I'll just introduce, so the Special Events Committee consists of yourselves, who are the legislative secretaries to the town board members. I would first like to thank you both for the incredible work you do for this. I know it consumes about 75% of your workload, and it's a huge lift for you to get that done. Additionally, on the committee, we have Councilmember Rogers, myself. There's always a senior officer from Town PD, either the captain, the chief, or a lieutenant. We have a representative from the trustees, the fire marshal's office, the town attorney's office, Parks and Recreation. Kate, who else am I missing? I think everyone there.
I think that's everyone.
That's it, yeah.
And
So
then we have some other, of course, we have the 2 legislative secretaries.
Yeah.
Town attorney's office is also present.
And the town clerk for films and other pieces. So it just for the public to know, whenever an application comes in, we review it, primarily from the perspective of public safety. Are there issues that can create public safety issues, but then also like nuisance issues that may be a concern to residents nearby. So we'll look at past history, but there's a huge amount of not just work, but cost that goes into applications, because, you know, the use of these resources, you know, it does cost the taxpayers something for that. So, you know, as we go through this, you know, just look at the numbers of events that we have reviewed. And I would say to applicants, you know, on the whole, 80% of people have behaved exemplary with regards to their public special events. Unfortunately, you still have the 20%. We try to work with those operators. We have seen improvements, but, you know, I'd say that, you know, as we go in to approve applications, you know, how people have adhered to the conditions of their past permits is definitively a factor in the approval in the future. With that, I will hand over to you both.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, so today we're going to go through the Special Events Committee. Tom actually covered the members, the types of permits and applications, oversight, annual recap of permits issued, a breakdown of the permits issued just in 2025, and a breakdown of 2025 permits by hamlet. The fee schedule hasn't changed since March 2025, but we will be proposing late fee changes for the upcoming year. Resources spent on special events, 2025 permit comparison to 2024, 2025 late application comparison to 2024, and the 2025 revenue comparison to 2024. So again, Tom already covered the members, but the Special Events Committee meets weekly to review special event applications. The committee first started meeting in January 2014 and was codified in the spring of 2022. The types of permits and application include 6. In previous years, there was only 1 application, where we broke that up into groups. So we have residential, commercial, public, parade, walk, run, art sale, and seasonal. Special event oversight. Each week, copies of the upcoming approved special event permits are sent to personnel in the following departments to ensure that events are in compliance. So that's the East Hampton Town Police Department, Marine Patrol, Code Enforcement, and Fire Marshals. And in the event that an application has been denied by the committee, the specifics of the denied application are also routed to the departments listed above. So this is an annual recap starting in 2018 up until 2025. So as you can see, we've kind of gone up and down. I just want to make a note on 2022, it says 582 permits were issued. That number is a little on the high end only because we weren't issuing revised permits. We just issued a brand new permit number, so that's why that number is a little high. But after that, we've started just issuing revised permits, so that's not a brand new permit number. So the numbers are a little bit lower, but relatively still pretty high for permits every year. So denied permits, we've had 2 this year that were public. Incomplete applications, 0. Now, just a quick note on that. That doesn't necessarily mean we've received fully completed applications throughout the year. It's just by the time the permit needed to be issued, the applications were completed. We have received multiple, you know, applications that things were left blank that we've had to go back and forth a couple times and remind people, you know, this is a mandatory section or you're missing a graph of some sort. But by the time the permit needed to be issued, they were fully completed, so we were able to issue the permits. The permits issued before events were canceled. We had 9 of them this year. So the total of permits issued, canceled or not issued was 11. We've issued 171 public permits this year for 246 events. Again, those numbers are different because some events we've had to put on 1 permit if it's multiple days in a row or something like that. So the numbers are only different because of that. We had 139 residential permits issued for 142 events, 194 commercial permits issued for 226 events, 22 parade walk run for 22 events, 15 permits for 101 seasonal events, and 3 art sale permits for 3 events. So the total this year was 544 permits issued for 740 events.
Okay, now we're going to give you a review of all of the Ocean, Bay Beaches, Maidstone, and Fresh Pond. There were 63 events on Ocean Town beaches with public parking lots. 34 of them were catered events. There were 12 events. Yours are going to look a little different. We found a typo in it, so we had to adjust the numbers, which is correct on the screen. There were 12 events on miscellaneous beaches. 6 were catered. Total catered events on town and miscellaneous beaches are 34. There should be 40. 10 events on Bay beaches, 0 were catered. There were 10 events at Maidstone Park Pavilion, 1 was catered. There was 1 event at Fresh Pond, so total catered events were 41. Sorry, That should be the correct number. Total number of beach, Maidstone, Fresh Pond events were 96 in total. Special event permits issued by Hamlet. We'll do a comparison for 2025, and then I'll mention 2024. Amagansett, we had 144 permits issued for 2025, and 2024, we had 147. East Hampton this year for 2025, 106. East Hampton in 2024 was 57, so there was a big difference there this year. Montauk, we had 193 this year, and then in 2024, we had 164. Springs, 2025, 77 permits issued, and last year for 2024, 110. And then Wainscott this year, 24, and then Wainscott last year was 38. So in total for 2025, totals 544 permits issued, and for 2024, a total of 516 permits issued. Please note that the special event fees changed as of March 2024, and prior to that, the fees were last updated in January 24th. And you'll see the next couple slides are the 2025 fee schedule, which we are going to keep at this point the same for 2026. I'm not sure if that'll change going forward, but for right now, we're leaving it. The only thing we're looking to change are, we're proposing some late fee changes. For 2025, the fees were raised this is for residents. The late application fee for 1 to 100 participants was $200. For 101 to 249 participants, it was $500. For 250 to 999 participants, it was $2,000. And then 1,000 or more participants, it was $5,000. And then we also have an additional fee if an application is submitted within 1 week of the event, an additional charge of $200, $250 would be incurred. So the proposed fee schedule for 2026 for the late fees, we're going to go back to, for residential, it's changing back to 2024 late fees. So for a town resident, for 1 to 100 participants, it would be $100. For 101 to 249 participants, it would be $250. 250 to 999 participants, it'll be $1,000, and 1,000 or more participants, it would be $2,500. And then all other special event applications, and that will include non-residents, public, parade walk run, seasonal, and commercial. Those fees are going to change, and I'll read them accordingly. For the regular late application fee, 100 to 100 participants, it would be $200. 101 to 249 participants, $500. 250 to 999 participants, it would be $2,000, and 1,000 or more participants, $5,000. And again, that is not for residential, that's for all the other buckets. The additional fee, if an application is submitted within 1 week of the event, an additional late fee will be incurred. So these are the proposed 2026 additional fees. For the town resident, it would just be $100. For a non-resident, public, parade, walk, run, or seasonal, it would be $250. And for the commercial, it would be $300. Okay. Resources spent on special events. Legislative secretaries' average hours per week for each of us is about 25 hours out of the 37 and a half hours. This is at the height of the season. This is due to processing applications, helping applicants, tracking payments, weekly meetings, etc. In 2025, weekly meetings were held from early April through October 2025, the busiest months being June, July, August, and September. Buildings and grounds average hours about 32 hours per each large event, and there's about 15 of them throughout the year. A good many of them are on the Montauk Green. There's approximately 480 total hours, and this includes setup, breakdown, and cleanup of events. Please note that many events require a visit by East Hampton Town Police Department, Marine Patrol, code enforcement, fire marshals for safety checks. There were about 200 events that utilized tents in 2025. The town attorney average hours per season is approximately 130 hours, and that includes the weekly meetings from April through the middle of October, phone calls, advice, emails, denial letters, etc. We also have an intern that helps us, assists us from the end of May through August. And her cost, it was about $4,876.32 for the season, and that equals about 192 hours times her hourly rate of $25.3960. We had the monthly meetings for this year. We had 1 in January, 2 in February, 3 in March, 5 in April, 4 in May, 4 in June, 5 in July, 4 in August, 4 in September, and 3 in October. And then we had a recap meeting in November. So the total meetings was 35. It averaged about 52.5 hours. That's a rough estimate because some of the meetings did go over an hour and a half at times in the height of the season. Okay, the 2025 permit comparison to 2024. So we had two denied permits in 2025 and 12 in 2024. We had 0 incomplete applications in 2025, 10 for last year. Permits issued before events were canceled were 9 for this year, and permits issued before events were canceled in 2024, there were 19. Total permits canceled, not issued for this year was 11, and last year it was 41. We did have a lot of cancellations due to rain last year with those floods and stuff. Public permits issued for 2025, 171. Public for 2024 was 190. Residential permits for this year, 139. For 2024, 138. Commercial permits issued this year, 194. Last year, 151. The parade walk run for this year was 222, and for 2024, we had 19. Seasonal permits for 2025, 15. 2024, 16. Art sale this year, 3. Art sale last year, 2. Total permits issued for this year, 544. 2024, 516. And then we'll do the 2025 late application comparison to 2024. This year, we had 45 late residential applications with a total late fee charges of $17,150. Last year, we had 46 late residential applications that totaled $9,650. Public, 7 late, $1,400 for this year. Last year, 7 late, $910. We had 80 late commercial applications this year that totaled $48,100. Last year, we had 44, totaling $7,250. This year, we had 8 catered events late, and that equaled $2,100. Last year, we had 14 late applications for catering, $1,500. 1 seasonal late application, $200 this year, 1 late last year for $100. So the total late fees for this year, $68,950, and for last year, 112 late applications at $25,770. So 2025 revenue comparison to 2024. 2025, we totaled $204,400. 2024, $139,855.05.
And that's minus like the cleanup deposits that are given back in police fees.
Okay, I don't know if you want the breakdown of the police fees and the deposits. I can read that if you want, but no. Okay, and I think that would be it. If you have any questions?
I do have one. Firstly, thank you for the great job you guys do in running this. It's a huge bonus to the town and obviously a lot of work. The one thing looking through the data that's evident is that commercial special events are kind of where we're really seeing the biggest growth from last year. With regards to late fees too, we saw a significant increase in there. It's kind of an anecdotal question, but is it the same people continually with the late fees, or is it different groups?
Seems to be the case for the most part, yes.
You haven't, and they don't seem to worry about it. They come in and we're like, I'm sorry, but we have to charge. That's okay. That's really what we get most of the time.
So, Mike, again, thank you to you two also, and thank you to the committee and Kate and Tom and Kathy, who was on the original special events committee.
10 years.
Do you miss it, Kathy?
I remember.
I miss the camaraderie. It's a great team.
It's a good crew. It's a very good crew.
It is.
I remember applying for, I think they were called mass gathering permits 15 years ago or more. And then again, talking about evolution of a process on here, I always saw this as a process for public safety, but also for quality of life on there. Never as a way to fill in budgetary gaps or anything, but what it does show is the amount of time that it takes to process these permits are equally matching the fee schedule that's there then too. And I think that's appropriate. But again, the committee here, public safety, and then also quality of life in neighborhoods and on beaches then too. So I appreciate this. I think it's something that we're seeing other municipalities starting to move that way also then too, that haven't been there. The town started it. I think the committee is right for the way that they're doing it right now. So I appreciate that time and effort on there. I see how hard you two work also as legislative assistants on there then too, during the season, but I also see how much you own this process too, and make it a lot easier on the town council and the committee members. So I sit here saying thank you to these all, but it's really you two, and for that right now, there's a great pat on both of your backs for that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it shows your dedication to customer service. I mean, I don't know if how these hours can be accurate because the phones never stop. You're answering. We should keep track of how many phone calls come in.
I can try. I mean, I can print emails that go this long, the back and forth sometimes.
Besides walk-ins, I mean, we're always available. The office is always open. Even at lunchtime, we have a system of how we can take in applications because that's the kind of volume that we see. And that's the pace we need to keep going to be able to get so many applications processed in the time that we do. So I want to thank you, and I want to acknowledge that, why do we have special events permits for 50 plus people at someone's house or for all these larger events? And that is primarily public safety, but also ensuring that the town is protected, the town residents protected, quality of life can be monitored, noise complaints, people know that there's a permit on a property. It went through a process. We do everything from parking plan to ensuring that they have the proper insurance to cover not only the town, but also themselves in the event that something happens. So this is an evolution from what this started. As everyone knows, people like to come here, people like to have weddings, people like to have large scale events, and it takes a lot of resources to put that together. So I thank you for the update as well and bringing it, to us, our attention again, the work that goes into this, so that everyone could have a good time and enjoy their event and leave safely.
And a lot of people are appreciative. We do get a lot of thank yous. We really do.
Just by the way you say, I'm sorry, we have to charge you a late charge, shows your commitment to customer service and feeling for the people that are making applications. It's really, it's great to see how you guys handle that volume.
Thank you. And we thank our intern too.
Yeah.
We've had Miriam last couple of
Miriam's
years
been
and she's
great.
been wonderful.
She's a
We had
huge
Nick
help.
before that.
Yeah, she's a huge help.
She is.
She is.
And she picks up quickly, so it's been wonderful.
She stays. So it's great.
Yeah, thank you for the update and for all the work that you put into making special events work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I miss you, ladies.
You can come visit.
Yes.
Sit in on some
We
meetings.
have so much time.
Thank you for all you do. And we constantly getting compliments from folks that, they all know you by name, and because you've got a lot of frequent folks that do it year after year, and they're, really grateful for your professionalism, as are we. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, now we're going to talk about, we're going to pivot to 2026. Jake, you have some recommendations for special events?
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to follow up that presentation, and we can talk about what we want to do moving forward to help the Special Events Committee in getting the tools necessary to ensure that the special event permits that we grant or process are done so adequately. And I want to say that in my 2 years of working here and working with the Special Event Committee, I echo everything that everybody has said. It's a true honor to work with the Special Event Planning Committee. So as we begin, first looking at Chapter 151, the definition of assembly, the Special Event Committee thought that it was imperative that we include drone shows within the definition. Mainly, this is because we have noticed that whenever something of this nature were to happen, it becomes a situation where everybody pulls their cars over and they watch it. So we have Captain Martin in the back right now, and he would be the first to tell you that this creates a situation where we need to ensure that we have proper traffic flow. So that is the first thing. We would like to include drone shows here.
So can we discuss it as
Yes,
each
please
one as
jump
we
in
go?
as we're doing this.
So
This is discussion.
my question is, because we had a couple of drone shows come before us, we didn't have it in the code. We denied it because we said it would be a public nuisance because we didn't have the ability, it was the middle of the summer, whatever, and then they went and launched it off a boat from, not in town waters. So do we need a definition of a drone show, and does it matter where it launches from? Because
It would be an interesting test to determine whether or not launching in a jurisdiction outside of the towns, whether or not that would create the ability for us to charge them without having the proper special event permit. If the intended impact was for residents of the town of East Hampton to view such with the foresight to know that it would cause a traffic jam, then I think that we would have the appropriate jurisdiction to do so.
But I guess, do we need a definition? Like, one of the applications was they wanted to launch from Navy Beach, right? So now they're taking over a section because that one had a particularly large footprint.
So I've been talking about this for the last couple of years since there was the Jonas Brothers one. They actually put a drone show in Montauk like 3 or 4 years ago. It was a QR code in the sky, and it worked, of all things. But guess what I did? Crane necked and stopped. So we're a lot of people. New York City has a good definition of drone shows also, and I'd be interested in what they do in their waterways. Also look into this, but I would agree with what the supervisor is saying is definition, and then yes, let's get it on there because I think you're going to see more and more of these, which in a way drone shows are actually a little bit more environmentally sensitive than fireworks shows, but they do have their own parameters of procedures that they need to follow, but also how it might affect the town.
Including FAA compliance too, with anything that's in the sky. I agree. I think what's important is also you might, as it's happening globally now, you do see some localities, locations that are transitioning away from fireworks into drone shows for 4th of July the large 4th of July celebrations, etc. I'm not sure I would think a drone show for a private residential wedding would be appropriate. So we would need to look at types of use that we would find appropriate in town. If you got 1,000 drones over somebody's residential property, a couple hundred drones, that really could create quite the quite the attractive nuisance, as they call it. So where it's appropriate, what type of events it's appropriate for, I think we need that defined.
And I just did work the Jonas Brothers into a town board meeting. How's that sound?
Apparently that Christmas special is very good, I've heard. My daughters, so.
Good job, Dave.
Councilwoman Rogers, what I would say is that the committee is well equipped already to determine what is appropriate and not appropriate. So it's not necessary to put that into the code. Instead, I think you guys do an amazing job in determining the parameters of what could be allowed if the permit is granted.
Yeah, and just shout out to everyone that the committee does not approve private fireworks shows for that same reason. We deny anything that comes across. Not many come, but you can't add fireworks show to your event.
And we've actually only grandfathered in the ones that have been going on for years. We don't allow any new fireworks shows.
Correct.
Has been the policy.
But I agree with your council's point, which is, look, these things come in and they are incredibly nuanced, and actually having the committee look at them from every aspect before approval or possibly denial is key, because there are so many variations, and I think there's a danger with being too restrictive with code language that someone finds the loophole. And I think the more important thing is, like, anyone who wants to put a drone show on comes to the town and applies for that special permit, and we review it accordingly.
I don't have anything to add. I don't have anything against drone shows or any other special events that make people happy, as long as they're safe and not causing other problems. So I trust council on this one.
The next is under definition of charitable organization. What this does is allows the committee to look at specifically the role that the charitable organization is in relation to the proposed event. What we want to ensure is that the event, if they are using a 501c3 as an applicant, is the main purpose of the event, as opposed to somebody trying to utilize a 501c3 in name only and profiting on such. So that's the purpose of the code language that we have drafted here.
So my comment here would be where you've got, however, such status permits the town board in its discretion. I would say the town board or its designee, because wouldn't it be the designee is the special? Because let me ask you, so we waive fees for many not-for-profits that are meeting this definition. We do not do board resolutions for each and every one. So are you saying we're going to start doing board resolutions for each and every one?
That's what I've been working with Anne Marie and Chelsea on already.
That's a lot of work that we're putting back onto the legislative secretaries. Because it's worked, the current practice has worked. So why do we really need to, for every application, we're going to?
I'll speak to that quickly if I can. Bluntly, I think council's hinted at, which is that I think the system's currently being abused somewhat, which is you're having commercial entities put in for special events under a 501(c)(3), and what we're seeing on the ground is that it's not really a charitable event. It's a kind of just a commercial free-for-all. So it's like, how do we manage that situation?
So you're going to pop it to the town board? I mean, you guys see right through it. You're the ones that are having the folks come in and meet with you, and you can see right through whether this is just, they're using the name, using it in name only, and they're going to slide them a couple of grand in order to have this big party or event.
But this is a matter of discussion in terms of, I know from working in this field in the past that there are some charitable organizations that don't have the manpower, the volunteer power to be able to host an entire event. So for them, if they were going to get a flat fee for the event, would still be advantageous to them. So I think, I agree that it coming to us, since we're on the ground and we're there, I think that would be acceptable for us to be able to determine if the charitable event truly benefits the charity or it doesn't.
Correct. And what we have done in the past 2 years is the Special Events Permit Committee determines what should be waived and not waived, and then a resolution is done waiving or not waiving such.
we don't do those resolutions. We haven't in the past. In the 10 years I was on the board, we never, if like Neopolitical Cowgirls is doing an event at Longhouse, we waive the fees. Project Most is doing an event at Moby's, we waive the fees. We've never come and brought it to the town board and done it as a resolution. It was always, we were the designee of the town board and we allowed it.
Okay, my recommendation is that the town board does do that, because you're the legislative body here, and you're the one vested with the authority on fees, not the special event committee.
All right.
Well, I think that
It's usually tight timing with some of
No,
these things.
because we can just do it nunc pro tunc.
I'm sorry?
We can just do it nunc pro tunc.
I don't know what
means
that
after the
means.
fact.
Correct.
Bless you.
Oh, after the fact?
Retroactive.
So we've given them their permit.
Correct.
They hold their event and then they're going to come back and give us a check if we don't. So you're going to have folks, I'm just trying to, the special event committee is like, we're going to weigh in on every application where a not-for-profit is asked for their fees to be waived?
Yes, that's my recommendation.
Have we counted how many events that is?
Yes.
How many?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm working with Chelsea and Anne Marie on it right now.
I don't think it raises to that level.
Is it a legal requirement in the sense that it's potentially a gift of public funds and therefore needs a town board vote?
That's what I believe, yes. Not necessarily an illegal gift, but I think that the town board is the one vested with the ability and authority to waive such a fee.
So could we potentially do it then, like we do there are certain special events where the town board has to grant a resolution based on our recommendation to approve those special events, like Duck Creek events on public property, CPF purchase properties.
250 people or more.
And 250 or more. And we do that, we have like 6 of them, would we need a separate resolution for each fee waiver?
You would not. We could do it in one resolution or individual resolutions.
Yeah, I'm supportive of the clarification generally. I think as Tom pointed out, there are people who have, by all standards or most standards, a traditional party, attach a nonprofit to it, and then, get the fees waived. So I'm supportive of that clarification. In terms of individual resolutions, I don't know how much time that would involve. I definitely defer to council on this, but it seems to me that it would be a fairly straightforward resolution where it just says, organization event, we waive the fee. And I actually don't mind having that discretion, because I also, one other thing I think that doesn't come up exactly here is late fees. If there are nonprofit organizations regularly applying for special events late, I think that there's a different consideration there in terms of whether that fee should be waived. Obviously, I trust the committee, and 99% of the time, their recommendation is how I would vote on that resolution, but I don't object to the formality if it's not. I appreciate supervisors' concerns if it would be a huge time suck. I just don't know how much it would be. It would certainly be a lot of individual resolutions, but we do them for budget modifications, all sorts of other things that seem fairly straightforward.
And Councilman, to your point, I believe that 151, I believe it's 10 under the chapter, has the inherent authority of the town board to waive any and all modifications, requirements, anything needed. So I do think that under the code as written, the town board could also waive any sort of late fee.
Yeah, and I'm happy to waive them. My point on that note is that I think there's a difference between a nonprofit with a charitable event who applies, within a week of the event that they've been planning for a month, or waiving the fee when they applied on time. That's all. And I just want to be careful that, when we consider waiving the fees, was everything timely? Because the whole point of the late fees is it's a further burden on the staff. Mm-hmm. So again, I think that the committee has a very good feel for this. Perhaps there aren't people who do that regularly. I just want to make sure that we consider the waiving of the fee with the fact of whether it was on time or late.
Understood.
I'm going to use this to go back in time and stand on my soapbox again. I've done in the past, I think it was 2009, about 16 years ago. I stood at the podium here also with a friend of mine, beloved his heart, who's passed, Rossetti Perchek. He started the Clamshell Foundation, other organizations. And at that time, we discussed and requested the board put in this type of language. And I would love for it, I'm going to stand my soapbox, you follow me if you want or not, is that the charities bureaus, that the charity shall provide services or funds for the benefits residents of the town of East Hampton. There are many charities come out here and they fundraise hundreds of thousands, not millions of dollars. Not a single dime goes to a resident of the town of East Hampton. And it's annoyed me for 20 years, if not more. So I understand where we're at with this. I know that this is not going to change it. But again, it's another opportunity for me 15 years or 10 years later to state that charities should partner with other local charities because there's a plethora of them in the town of East Hampton that need financial support and that can actually work with them if it's done in a way that we address in here too. It's always been a peeve of mine, and I'm off my soapbox.
Southampton has it, right, in their code?
I don't know what they have. I just know I have it under my skin.
But then, I mean, like Wounded Warriors, you wouldn't want to.
Yeah, I'm just letting you know. It's just, I mean, but that started here. They come here. There's others. It's just been a situation that's sort of driven me because I've seen where this has gone off the rails in the past, also. But it's for another day. I just want to.
I think the day-to-day understanding of it, of the committee meeting weekly and over all this time, we have a good feel for, how charities should be compensated and ensuring that they are.
And that's the same thing that Ian was saying. I have a respect for the committee to do so. It's just always been one that's out there, and I want to continue putting it out there. One of my feelings, that's just on my personal, yeah.
We have drafted this in such a way that these are factors in determining this. We could add that as another factor.
I'm not asking for that. If it comes up at a later time for review on there, I don't want to stop it knowing that we have to get far forward on it. It's just one of those opinions I've had for decades, and I just want to use my pulpit here to be able to say it again.
Yeah, I will say that as we receive 501(c) applications, we actually research who they are and what it is they're offering. I agree with you for local entities. Yes, that's keenly there. But, for other kind of national entities, I think as Councilmember Rogers mentioned, Wounded Warrior program, they're things I think people generally are supportive of. And so it's like, is the general benefit there? But that research is done on every application, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah, we ask for the 501c3 information from the charity. We just don't, say, applicants can't just say they're a 501c3. They have to show proof of that status.
Yeah, I think we put that in the code.
But I think to Dave's point, and I agree with it, that there can be a charitable organization that does great work someplace. I would argue Wounded Warrior Project does have an effect here, a positive effect on our community, so it would be worthy of the wave. There might be other charitable events that come out here because we're a wealthy community and there's no tangible benefit to the broader public. So I think that there's an important distinction there that I'm sure the committee already looks at.
Yeah, certainly so. Wounded Warriors touch everybody, unfortunately.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The next is our definition of seasonal special event permit. We've done two things here. One, we've included farmers market, which is included already. It just adds further clarification. And the second part of this is we're adding further clarification that just because somebody has this, it doesn't obviate any need for any sort of other approvals from any other such departments or boards.
So the seasonal special event permit, the way it was defined, was for reoccurring commercial recreational activity. So shouldn't farmers markets then just be a separate, its own section? Because that's not a recreational activity.
The committee deemed it to be a recreational activity 2 years ago. We could redefine it.
Could we just strike recreational and just say commercial activity?
No, we wanted to.
That opens the floodgates.
Yeah, that means you could sell surfboards on the beaches. Right. So it's, what we're providing for is recreational instruction on the beaches in terms of limiting what commercial activities are acceptable on the beaches.
Or just say commercial recreational activity or farmer's market.
We could do that, or we could expand upon recreational to include agricultural or something of that nature.
Kathy might be right, though, because I think there's some farmers markets that aren't public property, so, you know, does it really fit?
Yeah. Like, is Ashwell Hall considered public property?
No, or Amagansett
No.
Square,
Right.
you know.
It may need its own
I think it may need
special
its own thing,
section.
because it has an additional, the federal government on the ag laws have additional regulations and permissions for farmers market that some of them supersede town law.
Understood.
I'm good with the second options if you want to look back at the farmer's market, but also that they have to look at all the other, it doesn't circumvent the rules or other regulations.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I want to mention in this section too, this existing code is not new, but it is chairs and umbrellas on town beaches. You know, this is something we discussed as a committee. It happens, and right now it's being kind of operating without permitting. So I do want to make sure we do that outreach to operators on our town beaches that, look, if you are looking to have towns and umbrellas on town beaches, you will require a permit going forward.
That is already in the code, and it can be enforced.
Yeah, and there was a look at that. I know the Marine Patrol is interested in potentially beach use permit for that type of situation, but if it's in the code one way, we can force, or we can also just pull that out then too, separately then too. We continue to look at it.
So if that's something we're going to move forward with, we need to craft the parameters of that and what the communication points are.
The next is under our applications for a permit. When we get to the tents, we've already done some work with this under the building code. However, we wanted to make sure that we had it within the special event permit that no more than 10 days. Unfortunately, the committee has seen tents stay up for much longer than 10 days.
So the question is, if you're having the same event over every weekend in the summer, is it really a special event?
Actually, and there was the other one that we saw in Montauk where there was a tent up for about a month.
Yeah.
That was the one that required footings and everything else. It was a 2-story tent, I believe.
I think so, 2-story.
I often say that there's a significant crossover in this situation with the, what I consider the misuse of the 5013C application. The tent will be up for a week, and you'll have like all sorts of kind of different events used to shadow in people. So it's, I think it's good to tighten the code.
Does 10 days, so let's just say, but what if it's two legitimate charitable organizations that each want to do it on a Saturday night? I mean, there's enough time? I mean, I know it says under no circumstances, but sometimes whether, folks can't get the tents down when they're supposed to get them down or whatever. So like under no circumstances is obviously very strong language. But I've seen it at Mulford Farm in the village where a tent goes up and 2 different weekends, 2 different not-for-profits get to use the tent because it splits the cost between the 2 not-for-profits or.
We don't see that as much as we see a way to get around the fact that you would need a site plan review to have something up for such a long time.
Yeah, I'm just saying, yeah.
That's more than what we see than people sharing tents. Usually, I don't know if I've ever seen actually 2 charities sharing a tent on subsequent Saturdays.
I haven't seen that. I can't recall that.
Yeah, I have the same questions about that Kathy does on this one. I understand that we're trying to protect against abuse, and I'm sure that there's plenty of abuse there. But if somebody applied for a special event 3 weekends in a row, and that was the only time that tent was being used, I wouldn't want them to have to take that down and put it back up.
No, but perhaps they need to go to planning to determine whether or not site plan would be required in that case, because now they have a tent up for
3 weeks.
a significant period of
No,
time.
I understand. So if it triggers some other code that requires site plan, then so be it. But just, as far as I'm concerned, the problem would be holding a de facto special event that didn't have a permit on a day that wasn't approved. So if you have, one weekend where you have a special event and 2 weeks later, another special event, and that whole 2 weeks in between, there's huge parties that aren't the typical use of that property, that would be a problem for me. But the tent itself isn't really the issue.
But people aren't usually putting in tents on commercial properties on areas they don't use, and they could say, we'll just leave that so we don't have to bring it up and bring it down. Usually it's in a part of their property that they're using for their business, and they're putting up a tent for this special occasion. So if you have, let's say, for example, you have a restaurant that's on the water and they do weddings, and they would like to have that tent up and of course do weddings from May 1st all the way through Memorial Day to Labor Day, and they keep that tent up for the entire season. Is that really, because even if they're different events, is that really what the nature of a special event is? Or is that an accessory use, a seasonal accessory use for an additional structure? So that's what we're trying to make the distinction between. The difference between things that come to the special event committee should only be special events. It shouldn't be something that's running concurrently all the time, unless it's something that we approve, which is seasonal instruction, which doesn't have tents, and farmers markets, which open and close because people need that property in the interim time between the two farmers markets. We don't have any farmers markets that stay up in their locations for the entire summer. So that's what we're trying to have a distinction between the actual question of when is it a special event and when it is a reoccurring weekly event.
So I think that 10-day limit is like, look, beyond that, this is not a special event at this point. This tent has become something else.
It's no longer special nor an event. And now it's a use of the property.
Right.
So 10 days would be a Friday to the following Sunday. So if you want to encapsulate 2 weekends,
You'd make it 14 days.
make it 14 days. 10 days, it's very difficult to set up on a Friday and take it down on a Sunday. If your location, 14 days could be a Wednesday to Wednesday, allows for a 2-day setup inspection, 2 days takedown, but at the same time, wouldn't be, you can't get more than 2 weekends out of 14 days.
Right.
I still don't see why that the tent code itself can't control this. A tent, there's a certain amount of time where we determine it's temporary or not. Whether there's a special event in there or how many there are, to me, is not important. It's temporary. I think that this should be described in the tent section and not the special event section. And if people are having extra special, if in the case of a restaurant with outdoor seating, I don't really care if there's a tent there or not over people dining.
Well, I would prefer it went to site plan and was reviewed by the planning board.
Well, 100%. And that's why I think that the definition of what constitutes temporary is very important and would determine that. And I don't know the specific cases that might be we're talking about here. It just doesn't seem to me that the special event section is the place to dictate what constitutes a temporary tent.
I think just to play the other hand, what Kate's saying as well, which is that, look, if you're looking for something more than 10 or 14, I'm open to 14, by the way. At that point, it's not a special event.
So what describes it? What's the
It's an additional use.
What's the code say about what a temporary tent is? We just talked about this, so I should probably know.
I don't have it off the top of my head.
I think it's 2 weeks or.
No, there's New York State Fire Code also, but I think one of the things we look at right now is trying to maintain, to put this into our local law and special events. I think that's a proper place for us to have more control over these events before they become use, and potentially use our local laws to stop abuse, state laws potentially.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I think there's already a definition of a temporary tent, right, which supersedes all of this. And if we don't think that definition is correct, let's shorten that window.
Well, this is, again, we're specifically talking about what's in front of the Special Events Committee. And what's in front of us is events that have tents. So I think it is appropriate to say, this is how long you can have a tent up for any particular special event. Otherwise, it's not a special event. It would then have to go to site plan review for it to remain. It's not saying you can't have it. It's saying it's no longer falls under the auspices of what we call, and is defined in our code as a simple special event, a wedding. Tents go up, they come down. That's what the intent of the special event, Chapter 151 is. It's not to oversee planning and long-term structures put on properties.
So what would the solution here be to change the language slightly to say, under no circumstances shall a special event tent be erected on a property for more than 14 days?
I understand what everybody's saying, but is there a difference? Is there a scenario in which you can put up a temporary tent that's not a special event? Presumably, yes.
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 So, but if you have the temporary tent up and then apply for a special event during that period, it changes the time frame in which that event tent can be up? Doesn't make sense to me.
Yes, because you're having an event that is dictated by 151 under town code underneath that tent, which is meant to be a something we call, it's a special event. It's not your usual all the time use of that property. It has to do with maintaining use definitions and in the code as allowable uses and what you have to do to add a use versus coming in for a special event permit and ensuring that folks don't abuse the special event code to get around the site plan code, which is something that we see. It's very specific.
I understand. But if somebody has a special event indoors, they utilize the indoor space for the regular use otherwise. So all I'm saying is if there's a tent that is part of regular use, having a special event shouldn't necessitate them taking that tent down.
Well, if they're putting the tent up for the special event, then it should only be used for the special event, and that's what we oversee, tents that are put up for special events. We don't oversee any other types of tents.
But if there was a tent up for a site plan that came in through site plan review,
we don't see that.
That wouldn't be part of, I don't think there is a nexus to take that down through a special event permit on there, because the site plan would actually probably supersede.
It's something it's like doing a special event on your deck. You don't have to take your deck down either, or, wherever you use it on your already approved site plan property, then that's why you can have a special event inside your restaurant with conditions, right? So that you can't be open for business, so you're not overcrowding. I mean, we're also talking about public safety as well here, which has to do with things getting inspected, things not getting changed that are left up.
So I would say you're hearing where the board is coming from on this. We'll dig into it and get into January.
Okay.
Okay.
The next part that we have is we want to see proposed signage. We don't want to allow an applicant to get away with a gluttony of signs, because we do receive complaints where there is a gluttony of signs. So now this allows the committee to regulate such.
Right.
The next portion is cleanup deposit. This basically, the way the code reads, our town clerk is not permitted to deposit a check when it comes in. That's not really good. She needs to be able, or he needs to be able to deposit such a check, and we can then refund when necessary.
Agree.
And then the final part is it just grants, under insurance requirements, the ability for the town board to waive such insurance requirements as needed on advice and consent of the special event committee.
Yeah, I mean, does that, where we run into this is there's some smaller charitable organizations that the cost of the 2 million limit is really prohibitive for their operation. And so we see them saying, is it okay we have a 1 million? And, will the board, that covers this. It does not allow people to have no insurance. I want to be very clear on that. I think the complete waiving of insurance is something that I think that might be too much risk for the town to take on, but I think allows us to lower the limits is what I aim for here.
And as of right now, we have no mechanism to do what you were speaking about.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
So
is that, do you have anything else, Jake?
That is it.
Any other comments?
No, but let's look at some of the comments that some of the board members had in some of these sections. There's a couple easy ones, a couple ones I think we just have to circle back to, because this is all within public hearing code change that would have to be noticed in January then, obviously. But we want this in place by February, I think at the latest.
Yes.
So the repair for summer season of 26, which is going to be warm weather, sunny, beach.
I know
Is
that.
that your prediction?
Anyone listening? Or is that just me?
I'm hearing it.
I mean, as we get snow outside.
Okay, thank you, Jake.
I know Chelsea and Anne Marie are already working on this, so the sooner we can help them, the better.
So would it be correct if we can notice this the last week in January, so it could be set up for February, is what we would want to target?
Probably want to bring it back to work session for any changes that it made.
Early
first.
January.
Yeah.
Whatever the board would like.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you, Council.
Just announce our next topic up is Agricultural Committee recommendation discussions, and that's going to be led by Ian.
Yeah, I don't have, this was.
I'm sorry, I had to step away to take a phone call. I had comments on the last portion.
You're back up, Jake.
Sorry, Jake. And maybe you guys already discussed it, the town board may waive such insurance requirements for a given application. So is this back to, we're going to do a resolution every time it's not waiving, right? We're reducing. It's like right now, our code requires that you have $2 million worth of insurance to have an event on public property. We've had a number of not-for-profits come to us and say, $2 million is going to cost us an extra $1,200. Can we please do it at $1 million?
That was the discussion we had.
So are we going to, I wouldn't say we're going to waive it. We're going to reduce it.
Okay.
Because we're still making them get insurance. We're just not making them get the 2 million that our code requires. And then, so this is going to be, again, it's going to be the town board, or its designee. We are going to be the ones that are going to be, because.
That is my recommendation.
Okay, because it's always, again, that's something they have to do in advance. That's something they have to do to have a complete application. So it has to, I remember these had to be quick decisions. And do we have time to do resolutions with, the way our board meetings lay out in a calendar year? I don't know. So I would be comfortable with the town board or its designee and not have to come to us. It doesn't happen that often, but it does, we know some of the not-for-profits that are going to come to us because they ask every time. So that's just how I feel about it.
Are we able to do that as the Special Events Committee?
I'll research it further.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Okay. Now we're going to do Agricultural Committee recommendation discussion. Thanks, ladies, for being so patient. Are you leading this? Do you want Tina up at the podium? How do you want to move forward?
However you would like. It's up to you. I think this is just a follow-up from, I sort of had my comments on this a couple of weeks ago. I do just want to recognize there's some farmers here today. I think there were even more here the previous time. It's hard to get out in the middle of the day. But there were 10 or 15 people that, might have been absorbed by the people who were concerned about affordable housing. But I appreciate everybody being here. I'm supportive of these recommendations. The key here is just to create a category, or the thought is to recognize agriculture as distinct from residential or commercial. And currently our site plan applications only talk about residential or commercial. Agriculture is neither of those, and so it's never made much sense. I think to the point of a public comment earlier, concerned about, well, what is an ag property? That was one of the planning board's, I think, very thoughtful comments in their memo, which is if you're going to change the site plan classification, you also have to recognize an ag property is different than commercial or residential. How that shakes out, I don't know, because ag is unique and then it's allowed and I think every zone or most of them. The important part is how that property is being used. We wouldn't want somebody who is in the ag overlay district or preserved land just because it technically could be farmland to be allowed to use the ag exemption if it's not actively being used for farming. So like everything, like all of these proposals, I think a lot more work needs to be done. The intention was to sort of recognize agriculture as distinct from residential or commercial, and then start to dig into the details about what a separate application would look like. I'm supportive of doing that work. I don't know that every recommendation is worth a code change. We won't know that until we, consult with the attorney's office, building department, ARB, and other people who are concerned about this issue.
Okay, I think it would be helpful because the way the longer memo is written from the planning department dated May 23rd makes sense for us to go through. It started with create an agricultural category within the site plan application review process. The planning department concurs that the creation of an agricultural category for review would be appropriate. However, we also believe that creating a definition for agricultural property may also be required. So the question becomes, I think, are board members favorable to creating an agricultural category within the application?
Yes.
Yes, and
Okay.
definition.
Great. Next is a site plan exemption for ag structures of 600 square feet or less. Planning Department's assessment, while it may be appropriate to enlarge the size of the structures not exceeding site plan on agricultural use lots, several issues should be considered in drafting text to implement this change. One of them was it may be appropriate to limit the number of accessory structures of 600 square feet. And the other was compliance with setbacks, total lot and building coverage, and agricultural easement compliance should also be required. So where do board members sit on the committee recommendation that they have an exemption for ag structures of 600 square feet or less?
So I think the compliance with setbacks, total building coverage is a necessity here then too. I can see that actually require the site plan exemption being there also. I also have an issue with accessory structures on residential properties because you can have multiple as long as they're not over what your lot coverage is then too. I don't know how that would affect the farming industry. Ian, I look for your guidance on that one. But as far as allowing for it, yes, I'm open for it, but making sure the compliance is there with lot coverage and setbacks, but I don't know about a certain number.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was ever trying to, skirt, or the suggestion wasn't that it wouldn't apply to, coverage or setbacks. And I think you would still need a building permit. So presumably those things are all looked at. It was just recognizing that residential's allowed this as of right, or with a building permit, that, an ag structure shouldn't be more offensive than that. I totally agree with the planning department, though, that some ag properties are very large, and so they're limited in number. And to be clear, I don't think I'm ready, or any of us really can be, to say like definitively yes or no on any of these. It's whether we do the work to write code that could go forward. And I think this is worth looking into further with the, concerns and protections that the planning department suggested.
I would basically, I agree with that assessment. To look at the code would be helpful, in us evaluating with the comments by the planning department taken into consideration. Because it's always that fine detail. I think the Ag Committee did a great job in articulating the needs of farmers and those in agriculture and the challenges that they're facing now. But I also think that working that in with the detailed nature of what the planning department deals with and all of the kind of 30,000-foot aspect that they look at on every property and seeing what details are needed to make this work successfully is also important. So I also agree that we could go to writing code, incorporating the comments from the planning department from this memo.
Yeah, well, I think in the interest of transparency, we should go through it point by point as it was presented to us and as it was drafted in the memo. And then, I mean, if there is anything in here that board members don't agree with, why waste the time of an attorney drafting code that's not going to go anywhere?
Which is the whole point, which is why we're looking at something that's very incomplete, that's been talked about for many years. I didn't want to have an attorney draft the code if we said this one's absolutely not worth looking at. Even if we say it's worth looking at, we might uncover some reason why we can't go forward with that change. And I presume that will be the case. It's just to make sure that we have board support and public support to do the next step, and there will be a lot more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, with regards to the structures of 600, I'm open to exploring it. I think it is the point here. I do have some concerns with it, specifically how we're going to balance the language with any existing covenants and restrictions that exist on the property, as that was brought up earlier. But conceptually, as an idea and operationally, I get where that's at. There obviously might have to be some kind of cap for total number in my mind, because the danger here is that what if someone's having multiple structures?
Next up, 3 is codify that temporary season extending covers are not structures. The planning department recommends that the committee draft a definition for farm equipment or a similar term which could be exempt from these, which would exempt these from site plan approval. And then they lay out a couple of different bullets and how that works. Are folks supportive of codifying that covers, season extending covers are considered temporary?
I have a question for the committee and Ian on that one. Is that a strict definition? I mean, does a greenhouse become, when's it a greenhouse? When's it temporary greenhouse? Is there a time limit to it? I just concerns that, is this language strong enough,
Well, you have good concerns because we don't have language yet, and this one is much trickier. It was not intended, the spirit of this was not intended by the committee to mean greenhouses. It's more like insect netting that, is on the ground for a little while, or frost protected cover, something that's, but to your point and Kate's point earlier, the specific words will really matter there. And I think this is it's frankly a more complicated ask, and I don't think we've had that many problems with it. So good questions, and I don't know how that would be described.
I mean, I think the committee rationale, they kind of laid out examples of what it would be, which.
Right, exactly. But how do you differentiate those, but, or a greenhouse at what point, does the height of does a mini tunnel that's 1.5 feet high in the ground for 2 weeks? It's just how you word that will be important. I'm definitely supportive of the concept.
Yeah, no, conceptually, and I understand it too. Like, look, I mean, I think that you want to avoid crop loss, you want to preserve the soil from, extreme weather events that we're seeing more often. So, allowing for this in those periods, makes logical sense. But I think the parameters really have to be there to ensure it's not excessive.
So what is the process now? If someone needs to put up netting, they are supposed to come in front of the.
No, so that, again, this hasn't been an actual issue, but theoretically, if somebody looks out and sees netting and metal hoops, they could say, oh, that's a structure. It's not clear that it's not. I don't think anybody's been cited for this. I don't think it's been a major issue. But while the topic was at hand, somebody pointed out
I would enjoy looking forward to clarity on that and having planning and attorneys draft up language.
Jake, who's going to be drafting this?
I believe that this one will be Brittany.
Okay.
Because it's coming out of planning.
Got it. 4, the committee recommendation is implement code changes that allow easier and faster approvals for temporary ag structures and permanent ag structures. And then they broke it down into 3 categories. I don't see the 3 categories spelled out in the memo.
Tina, do you know what the categories are? Sorry. Thank you.
I think the categories were temporary, like a plastic greenhouse, And then a more permanent structure, which, maybe concrete and wood and metal, but is not open to the public. And then the third category was a farm stand or a retail center or someplace that's.
Yeah, it's in the recommendations.
In page 6, yeah, on page 6 of the 6 to 10 of the memo, it reviews them.
Thank you.
Based on, yep.
And the idea was to differentiate, because I think the committee recognized that it's a different thing if you're developing a retail space is associated with agriculture, or if you have what objectively is a large structure, but is just to propagate plants. They're two very different, types of structures.
Right,
And
so the first one's temporary, right? There's no foundations, it's movable. They're like not permanent materials like wood, plastic, no like steel, things like that. The second one is, I'm skipping, can't find it. But then the third one is the permanent farm structure that is like the barn or the place where other people like patrons can gather. And it's a full scale building. And the other one is in the middle. I don't know where it is in this memo.
So I guess one question I have here specifically with the permanent structures, and I know it's a little nuanced because we get into this elsewhere, like, enforcement regulation, but if you're allowing the permanent structures, how are you ensuring that they're not being used for non-agricultural processes? That's one of my real concerns with the permanent structures themselves. Like, could sell T-shirts, Well,
let's just to be clear, though, permanent structures are already allowed. They just don't have a classification that's agriculture. I think abuse will be really important to look at, but that's true of any permit or structure that we have. You want to make sure that the intended use is there. And so, as these are crafted, it'll be really important that, only agriculture is taken advantage of them. I think all of that's to be determined in terms of the mechanism.
Right, so the permanent is not open to the public. That is like the barn where you have things going on, but it's not open to the public, but farm operations are happening out of, but it stays where it is. And then the third category is on page 8 in the report, which says full scale farm structure. That's where like the retail is happening. So you would understand what the use is, parking would be required in that third category.
And in the back and forth, I think there was an appreciation from the committee that, there's work that goes into this when somebody has an application by the planning department or the building department, and just recognizes that, again, a very simple metal and plastic structure that might cover a lot of space, it doesn't really require the same amount of review because it's not a complicated structure. And so there's no way to differentiate a very temporary greenhouse from a substantial building, and I think it's appropriate to look at that.
I mean, I have an issue with the recommendation that should not require drainage involvement. That's one to me. Just having spoken with residents in Amagansett off Main Street, their properties are continually flooded, and like the cause is unknown. But with these structures going in, that can significantly change rain flow. And to not have any drainage oversight, to me, is a risk to surrounding properties. Maybe there's a caveat that if they're certainly set back from other properties, we can find the waiver there. But to have no drainage oversight, I think, is potentially a miss.
And I think the planning department commented on that in some cases it might be appropriate, in other cases not. And I totally agree. Drainage is important. So maybe it's just the ability to waive that in appropriate cases when you're in the site plan process. But I think, Tom, you bring up good points, which, are all true.
Also, if one and I'm just going to put this out there, it's not a recommendation, but say for a temporary structure that maybe doesn't have to go through site plan, the building department could still look at that and say, okay, they want to put 2 temporary structures and understand that, you need some drainage there. So I think you would need review because you do want to guard against what you're saying. But it doesn't have to occur in the site plan context. It could be a building department type of discussion. It could be a administrative site plan for these types of structures. So there's different options that if we do convene a committee to start looking at them and working with Brittany on code, we could see what works best.
But I do believe even unless it was less than 600 square feet, even if all these recommendations were adopted, a temporary structure larger than 600 square feet would still go before site plan, just as a different category. So safeguards have to be there, 100%, but I think that would be the next step to make sure that the code was sufficient.
Yeah, and a lot of these recommendations with respect to the different types of structures even get into like our application instructions, which are a very fine level of detail, like at this initial conversation. First, we'd really want to make sure, does everybody agree that it makes sense to proceed down this realm? Would we agree to different regulations for each of the types? I mean, I can kind of see the temporary farm structure being the lower hanging fruit there, and I understand from the committee that it's a pain point. But for the larger, more permanent structures, that gives me a little pause, right? I think agreeing to all the, no surveys and stuff like that, we need more time to think stuff like that through once we like really consider the definitions and agree on those. And then, okay, so we've got these things identified, what's appropriate for each.
Yeah, I think the level of details is going to be the critical points here.
Yeah.
To the overall general concepts.
Okay. And then I think the last one is 5, an altered fee schedule that considers whether structures are temporary or permanent. The point here was that sometimes these fees are commonly more expensive than the structure itself.
The Ag Committee raised that concern. The planning department puts the same amount of effort and energy into applications irrespective of what the use is. We have to do the research for the site. We have to look carefully at the implications of what's being proposed. We don't get that many agricultural applications, so would there be a huge impact? Probably not. We do already exempt charitable organizations as well as affordable housing projects, so there's precedent. It would really be a board decision, and maybe we would look at how many ag related properties have we looked at in the last 5 years to give an understanding of the scope of what that could mean, if you're ready to even think about it from a decision making.
I'm supportive of this one. I think it aligns clearly with comprehensive plan goals. Like, I think, minimizing the cost we have for agricultural operators from government entities to operate, the way where we can reduce them, I think that's appropriate.
I agree. I do too. The last one, number 6, is to increase the maximum total coverage, lot coverage, to 15% for parcels actively involved in agriculture. The current maximum is 10%.
We felt that could work. I mean, 10% is very low, especially for a large property. And if the committee is telling us that they need flexibility to build these other types of structures, the 15% seems to make sense in that context, especially.
And then, so this is more to you, Ian. This is going to be, we're not doing all of these changes at once. Are we going to be doing, is this like a phased in approach, get the things that are more low hanging fruit? Or are you looking at doing this as like one comprehensive code change?
I think that'll be determined by how difficult they are to achieve. So, I think like the farm equipment, the covers might be very tricky code language to work in there. And so if I'm working with Brittany or whatever attorney, I think the ones that seem like we could accomplish it very easily and cleanly, we just do it. So I think we would start by looking at everything, but I think pretty quickly some of the things would be cut off. So I think the main point is the category itself, because to Tina's point just a minute ago, the criteria the questions don't make sense on the application, and people haven't known what to fill out. So I would look holistically at it and then try to just, accomplish what we can, where the low hanging fruits are. I don't know exactly which pieces are lowest. I frankly think the 15% might be fairly simple, but it might be a more controversial ask. And so maybe that's included first, or maybe not.
Okay. Board members have any other comments?
Yeah, this one I think needs more digging. I'm not entirely opposed to it, but whether it's like 10% and 5% temporary structures, or in that realm, I understand some of the needs that are being called out here, but I want to take a closer look at this as we review.
I really feel like, when we did the housing changes after the housing and we adopted the new housing into the comprehensive plan, for me, it really is helpful to have the code to be able to say whether this works or not, or if there's any additional. It's hard for me to, I agree with all the concepts, I really do. I think that none of them are outrageous, although they need safeguards and guardrails, obviously. Even the word actively, actively farming, I could see people trying to come in for other uses for that. What is that definition? So I think the definitions and the actual code language is really going to determine support in the end.
Yeah, so I'm good with looking at it, but I would like to request, I don't know if you're going to piecemeal this, do it all together. Either way, I'm ready to discuss and listen to it, whatever you think is best, even as you lead this forward. Another component to this is ag housing, and I would definitely love the request for more consideration or discussion of that at the Ag Advisory Committee, and bring that to the town board, how that could be effectuated, even if it's part of this or not part of this, to move that ahead. Because I think that I myself as a town board member, I'm ready to discuss that also, Ian. I know that's a lot to put out there, but I want to put it out there publicly.
I agree.
Yeah, and I had a very brief meeting with Ed Reale, our new attorney, special counsel for housing, and we talked about that too, and I'm sure you did as well, Ian.
Yeah, I've spoken with Ed about it, and I know the committee has spoken about it very, preliminarily. I do think that these proposals are separate from the housing, just because it's a very new concept, but I believe that that'll be on their agenda, soon, and I think it ties into other sort of on-site workplace housing.
You can have it here by Thursday?
It would be great to see a comprehensive, though, as we're talking about permanent structures, temporary structures, if we could try to look at it from that, and housing, that may change some of the definitions, so we'd have to go back and change the definitions again.
Yeah, I think the housing is going to be a more complicated piece here. And if housing's involved, I don't think anybody's asking for sort of, free permits or anything like that. I don't know, but I think that would complicate things quite a bit. So to everybody's point, I want to look at housing and these, but I think somewhat separately, although to your point, Kate, making sure they're at least consistent with each other. I think if we want to include housing and we wait on that, it's going to delay a lot of other, I think victories we could achieve in the meantime.
Sure.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Tina. And thank you, Lady Farmers. Is this like 2026 is the year of the female farmer? I read somewhere.
There were probably 15 people here before, but they just blended in with the full room before.
Well, thank you for your patience and staying for the discussion. All right, last up is an after hearing discussion for 213 3 Mile Harbor in East Hampton, and that was the Martinez UR map modification. Charlie, you had brought this to us in work session. We held the public hearing. We did get some comments from the attorney from Martinez, and then we heard from the neighbor and.
Yeah, well, what I would suggest after looking at a lot of the stuff came in after the close of the public hearing. So I think the board should consider reopening the public hearing, and if they really want to have both sides come and just have a discussion in front of you, you just have them, invite them back and just have it open in front of everybody. Okay. And then you can make your fully informed decision based off of that, instead of, because it was a weird situation where I think the neighbor was out of town, and there's no notice required for these changes either. So there was some issues there. So that's just to keep it all on the public record and make a determination based on the public record. I think that would be.
And to reopen a public hearing, you would need a 5-0 vote by the town board to do so, correct? Yeah. So we can potentially do that through a resolution on Thursday if the town board decided to do so, but it would mean all members of the town board would have to be in the affirmative. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I support that. I think that's a sound idea.
Yeah, I think I think
that's for good transparency. I know that's something that the supervisor wants to do also.
I think, and then that way everyone can just lay their cards out, and then you guys can make an informed decision.
Okay, is everybody good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
All right, Charlie, if you could get a resolution on for Thursday night?
No problem.
All right, beautiful. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, now we're up to liaison reports. Tom?
I'm going to keep mine very short this week and just take the time to thank all my committees for the incredible work they've done this year. I think we've had some great legislation come across. You've given great guidance and time, so thank you to all of my committees, and that's it for me.
David?
Well, stunned here.
Keep me short
You had
and
more
sweet.
time.
I gotta put my glasses on quicker. Okay, I have four things, actually. First thing is Suffolk County Aquaculture Lease Program. There's a meeting on January 12th. The meeting is upcoming between 5 and 6 to look at some renewal lease locations. None of them, I believe, within the boundary near the town of East Hampton, but if you're interested in that, please contact the Suffolk County Department of Economic Development. As a ditch dune update, all the sand has been placed, and currently they are working on, the contractor's working on beach plugs and fencing installations there, but we are probably forward to accept all the surveys upcoming very shortly, potentially by the week's end, so that project's moving forward there. Yes, it will be interacting with the water, but again, the project's been substantially complete. Again, the 3 piles of sand will be used to replenish the beach in the springtime if and when needed. Dredging update, the Montauk Army Corps of Engineers Lake Montauk dredging update right now is that it is an extremely hard dig, anything past 17 feet, to a point where it's terminally damaged the dredge, the Oyster Bay. On Friday, a new dredge was brought into the area. It's called the Scrod 2, that actually has helped dredge Lake Montauk in the past. Luckily, it was available. The contractor brought it in, and it's been working for about the last 72 hours. Still looking under the completion date on there. There's going to be a different dredging methodology. Solely is that they're not going to try to dig deeper because the material down there is very hard. They're going to try to remove it. So until any changes on that, there is a second dredge in the location, and the Oyster Bay will be removed at some point upcoming then too. Lastly, this for you, Tom. I don't know if you made aware of this. On Saturday, there was another accident, I believe, near or in the crosswalk in Amagansett. This is the second one in the last maybe 5 or 6 weeks. I think it's even more imperative, and you have more of my support to continue to move forward with the lighting district and the lighting plan there. I know I sat in with the Amagansett CAC on there. I think that's a project that's necessary and needed. I look forward to helping you however you need to on that. We are seeing that there is a need, and as the supervisor has pointed out multiple times, it's not because there's leaves on trees and blind spots. It's just there's an overall need by the amount of individuals that are using that area, then too, the way it's built, the colonial area of it, and then too, but by having multiple accidents like this, there's justifications that are there. So let me know how I can help on that
Thank
too.
you. It continues to move forward. Obviously for those who follow the press, there was kind of, I thought some rather disparaging marks made about our town engineer that were not entirely fair. But with that said, we are taking on board that feedback that was received to the committee, and we've shared it with the engineer, and we're going to ensure that whatever is put forward is, as is possible, aligned with those dark skies initiatives.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. That's all I have. And happy holidays to everyone too. I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season upcoming. Sorry, one more time. East Hampton High School Bonnet basketball. They won the Kendall Madison tournament on Saturday. They beat Bridgehampton. It was a wonderful game. All new sports are out there. The wrestling team, I think, did pretty good at the Spring Garter tournament. The girls basketball team, which my daughter is on, is moving ahead, and other teams. So don't forget to look at those sports out there. Please enjoy the holidays, and I will see you all very shortly. Thank you.
Great.
I'll see you Thursday, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You have one more meeting.
the Sustainability Committee met yesterday. We talked about having a community forum on sustainable options and how they can save you money. In that vein, talking about bringing back to the attention of the solar program that we have. So it'd be sustainability across the board. Sustainable landscaping, there's so many options out there now that are very low cost and save money to the homeowner. And also our Solarize program and all of the other, the septic upgrade program, all the programs that we have in place and options that all of our industry folks, business folks offer for sustainable practices. And we'll be talking about composting again as well for 2026. So we have a full plan to move sustainability forward, particularly to residents and with low-cost options to be able to help themselves save some money and help the planet as well and our own sustainability. I do want to also thank those folks as well as all my town committees and the CAC, Wayne-Scott CAC, for the time and effort and dedication that they all spend and put out for making our community a better place for everyone. So I want to thank everybody for that, and I'll stop there.
Can I just add on to, so we had a previous speaker talking about sustainable landscaping. This time of year is a perfect time of year to start planning your landscaping for the spring.
Yes.
You know, to start researching what you would like to see, planning it out, working with experts, working with your family members, looking at your own properties right now, because very shortly, in 90 days, it's going to be growing season once again. I know a lot of industries do that, but if you're interested in that, right now is a wonderful time to start looking into those type of landscapes also and using your time
We're
wisely.
looking to put together a forum for all residents in March.
Sure.
For people to think about what they can, how they can save money primarily.
I know you might just put your garden in the bed, but at the same time, always never too early to start thinking about the
I
next
love
one.
that you think I have a garden.
Sorry to interrupt, but
That's
go
all
to
I
add.
Ian.
I know David is passionate about doing his own landscaping, and I'm happy he had a second bite at the apple with his liaison report here to get that plug in.
I think David's thinking of his 2026 gardening right now.
The spring CAC will meet tonight at Ashwag Hall at 6:30. The main topic on the agenda is a representative from the tower company with the proposal for the cell tower at Springs Fire Department. Will be there to answer questions. I believe there's a public hearing scheduled in January before the planning board. So anybody who's interested, that issue has had a lot of, cell towers generally and in that site has had a lot of comments over my 2 years in the spring CAC. So anybody interested in that topic, tonight at Ashwag Hall at 6:30. Community Housing Advisory Board, CHAB, will meet tomorrow at 5 p.m. That will be in the Planning Department Conference Room, 300 Panago Place. That's open to the public. And then that's a short report. The only other thing I want to say is, following Tom's lead, I want to thank all the committees, the people who serve. All of the input that I've had from the people on my committees have really helped, I think, guide my work on this board and have led to some great results. And likewise, I think public participation. It's great when you see people coming here and speaking on agenda items or whatever's on their mind, because a lot of times we just, people might know more than us in a lot of cases. And if you don't speak up and let us know, then we won't learn. So I welcome that through public participation at a meeting, or reach out privately. I think all of the board here are open to people reaching out who might be shy to speak at the podium or even write an official email. Just let us know your thoughts. It'll help us do a better job. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you, Ian. And just to build on what you just said about thanking our committees, but also serving, we announced last week that we had set up an email address, serve@ehamptonny.gov. We've probably gotten 24 responses. What we've done is Aileen in the supervisor's office wrote back to everyone, gave them a list of the committees that we have, where their interest is, what hamlet they live in case they want to serve on a CAC. Aileen is putting together an Excel spreadsheet so that if somebody said, business committee, Tom, you would pick up the phone and they said they live in East Hampton and wanted to be on the advisory committee, I'd reach out. So some of these folks are going to get multiple touches from town board members based on where their interests lied. East Hampton Housing Authority met last week, and I just want to let folks know on Thursday night we have a resolution reappointing Arthur Goldman as a commissioner to a 5-year term. Last Friday morning, State Assemblyman Tommy John Scavone and State Senator Anthony Palumbo held their annual South Fork Behavioral Health Initiative meeting via Zoom. We got a report from Dr. Christy Golden Campo at Stony Brook University Hospital. They had done a community survey and also a survey among school superintendents, and the top 2 health needs they're seeing among our youth is mental health and substance abuse. She went into some of the programs they're having, and that Stony Brook has set up, I think it's the old Blake Kerr office in Waynescott, where they've got folks there, social workers there, whatnot, addressing mental health. Family Service League gave a presentation. It was similar to the one we saw here. And then Adam Fine is always tapped to speak on behalf of school districts, since he is the one that, and Ralph Naglieri at the time, sounded the alarm back in 2015 about adolescent mental health. And he says, the 2 big issues and concerns that they're seeing with their student population is vaping and anxiety from immigration and ICE, and that the cell phone free schools has been, well received by the students, and it's working out well. Part of the agenda was for the towns to talk about their 2026 budgets in the lane of behavioral health. And I shared that we give a $50,000 grant to Family Service League, a $30,000 grant to the South Fork Behavioral Health Initiative, and we've got a new grant. This is $16,000 and change, and that is to Family Service League for the program that they have with the East Hampton Town Police Department. So that's a total of $96,000 for mental health, and then we give a grant of $70,000 to Phoenix House for their outpatient program. And then lastly, this morning, the town was before the East Hampton Village Design Review Board for the YMCA pickleball courts. We are looking to where the basketball courts are to have 3 pickleball courts. The DRB, the Village DRB, is asking the town to consider redoing the exterior of the building as part of this project and wishes to tour the building and grounds. The town is going to be meeting with our engineers regarding next steps, and we still will need to go to the ZBA and then back to the DRB. So we've probably got another couple months before we can get final approval on the 3 pickleball courts there.
So they won't be ready for summer.
No.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like it, David. And that is what I have for my liaison reports. And now we do have a handful of resolutions this morning, this afternoon.
I'll start. It's my pleasure to offer Resolution 2025-1631. This is to accept the proposal for the Burying Ground Preservation Group for Sorry, it shouldn't say East End Cemetery. I apologize. It should say Amagansett Cemetery. So it's amended to Amagansett Cemetery in the headline and also in the whereas clause located at 10 Atlantic Avenue. This is where we're going to be cleaning, repairing, and conserving Revolutionary War Patriot monuments on there. They're Patriot stones. And this is not to exceed $6,800 in the proposal dated December 4th, 2025.
Second is amended.
Yes, please. Amagansett everywhere.
Second is amended.
All in favor?
Aye. 1632 is to accept the proposal from Peconic Monument Works. The town is owner, again, as amended to the Amagansett Cemetery located Atlantic Avenue and the Green River Cemetery, and where they're going to be doing repairs on some certain broken cemeteries and reset memorials, not to exceed $3,280.
Second is amended.
All in favor?
Aye. 1633 is accept a donation of a memorial bench, a gift from Marissa Foster Moore. Whereas Marissa Foster Moore would like to donate a memorial bench as a gift to the town of East Hampton dedicated to her parents, Stephen and Janet Kelly, and in memory of her brother, John Kelly, to be placed at the end of Flaggy Hole Road. Let it now therefore be it that the town gratefully accepts the donation from Marissa Foster Moore to the town of East Hampton.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. 1634, this is a budget modification and a distribution of the 2025 Turkey Run for Fun net proceeds, where the Budget Office is directed to make the following budget modification and distribute the net proceeds as calculated by the town's Recreation Department from the 2025 Turkey Run for Fun, where we're going to increase the revenue line in the amount of $19,710.28 and increase the expenditure line in the same amount, and we're going to distribute that amount of $19,710.28 equally in the same in the amount of $4,927.57 to the Montauk Food Pantry, the East Hampton Food Pantry, the Springs Food Pantry, and East Hampton Meals on Wheels.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
That's great news.
Resolution 1635, this is to amend Resolution 2025-1575, and this is just to include the budget lines.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 1636, this is to amend Resolution 2025-1284 for Granicus Agreement. This is for new software for the town clerk's office, and it's an additional cost of $8,100 for a total of $78,660.15.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 1637, this is to authorize services for gutter cleaning at 54 Tub Oarsman Road and 20 Dorset Road. The total cost for both gutter cleanings is $465.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 1638, this is to authorize cleaning services at 19 Joshua Edwards Court. This is for Catherine's Cleaning in an amount not to exceed $700.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Resolution 1639, this is to authorize cleaning services at 20 Dorset. This is also for Catherine's Cleaning in an amount not to exceed $800.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have Resolution 2025-1640. This is to accept and affirm a revised MOU for technical services through Long Island Forward Housing Program for the Route 114 Housing Market and Feasibility Studies. Second. All in favor?
Aye. I have 2025-1641. This is to accept proposal RFP EH 2025-107 for hazardous waste collection days. This bid has been awarded to Radiac Research Corp.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
1642 is accept a change order proposal for D&B for the Westlake Stormwater Project bidding, where these consultants were submitted a change order dated December 8th, 2025 for bidding services that were not included in the bidder contract, and the amount is for $2,800.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. 1643 is a budget modification for cemeteries, where we're decreasing the amount of $3,280 from contingency and increasing the same amount in subcontractor cost.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. 1644 is a set bid EH 25-049. This is for the annual sidewalk contract to Stasi Industries Incorporated.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 1645 is to issue a payment to Justice Court in the amount of $160. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Right, those are all the resolutions we have for today. Do I have a motion to go into exec session?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for CPF, personnel, leases, real estate contracts, and advice of counsel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Jason at LTV.
Thank you.